Hey, everybody, and welcome to our Week 6 Fantasy Preview Show on the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. We are paving your way to fantasy glory. We are feeding and then breeding and then feeding some more and then breeding a few more fantasy wolves. And we're doing this more than ever these days. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the original fantasy wolf. We don't even need to feed him anymore. He's on his own. He's doing great. Wolf, how you doing? Wolf,
I'm doing great in most places. I mean, my Christian McCaffrey going all in all my auctions is not panning out. My team has crumbled a bit so far, but so far the predictions have gone well for everybody else but myself. So you know what? That's all that matters, right? I'm so unselfish that I care way more about you guys than I do myself. Not at all. I'm fucking crumbling in those leagues. 0-3 since McCaffrey went down in 2 of them. It's bad. It's getting ugly over here, Nat. It's getting real ugly, but we will plow on. We will move forward because everything else has gone great for all the other advice that I've given. So that's good. At least I just didn't follow it.
You did hit on quite a few of the things that you threw out there in the last couple of weeks. I know last week we did an award show, but you hit pretty well on the stuff we did the show before, the week 4 preview. Really, really well, actually. I want to say 80% or something like that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, just what did you spend on McCaffrey? You got him in was it a snake draft, or I'm assuming it was an auction you're talking about?
The same night I had back-to-back drafts. I got first pick, so obviously went McCaffrey, and then my auction was following that. So I was like, all right, we're hammering it. We're going to make sure we go out and get this guy. So I ended up only having to pay only $70, but I was ready to pay 75, 80, go all the way up. Ultimately didn't pan out clearly at this point. If I can survive, I should have bid far more. And this is kind of my own mistake. Mike Davis has been an animal. The most fantasy points of all running backs since McCaffrey went down. He went for about 35, 40 free agency budget. And so I was like, maybe I'd pay 20 for him. I should have paid 40. I would be probably 4-1 at worst, 3-2 right now. Had I bought Mike Davis, certainly would have won last week. The guy is an absolute animal. Now that makes me question. I wonder what your thoughts. Do you think McCaffrey and Davis become not a timeshare, but is Davis just going to disappear after he's dominated so long? I don't know. What do you think?
It's hard for me to believe that he will disappear. It's also hard for me to envision a timeshare, which I know it has to almost be one of those things. So I don't know. What's the precedent kind of for a super elite back going out, someone coming in and replacing him and being fantastic? I think I saw somewhere he's accounting 85, 90% of what McCaffrey was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
McCaffrey was doing historic stuff last year. So the fact that Davis is at 85% of what McCaffrey was doing is mind-blowing, because McCaffrey was having a season for the ages. I think second beyond only LaDainian Tomlinson scored more than him over that time frame. So, it is crazy to think what this will become. The offense seems to be a one-back centric thing. Maybe that's just because they only have Davis at this point and they didn't expect to go to anyone other than McCaffrey. But it's becoming, I'm nervous that it wouldn't necessarily be because Davis is better than McCaffrey. Of course not. That's not the issue. But what if they want to keep McCaffrey fresh and they know they have the right legs to be able to do so? I don't know. Maybe I'm just panicking, but I'm getting nervous here.
I understand you being nervous. The big lesson, you touched on, and then we moved off it, is that you can't take free agent dollars with you.
No.
And so if there's somebody you want, I've gone way, way too high on people before, but I've also underbid and then really regretted it. 2 weeks later, been like, man, if I had bid $4 more on this guy, I'd have him, and I would have won 2 of the last 3 games instead of losing all 3 of them.
Right.
And then that's one of the things that's the most maddening for me, because it would have been so easy to do that. And I was like, no, I'm going to cling to this fake money that I don't know. That it drives me crazy. I've been there before. No judgment from me, but I feel like the lesson is go get your guy if you can get him.
Absolutely. And on that note too, by the time this one publishes, Claypool's, all the waiver wires are going to be run.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them got delayed till Thursday, but we'll be dropping this Thursday morning. So you're going to be hearing this in retrospect if you're not live, but if you are live with us, and if you are, any likes, comments, shares, we will always have our open mailbag at the end of the episode. It'll take us about 45 minutes or so to get there. But ultimately, any likes, all that stuff helps us get out to more people. So huge. And if you're watching now and live, you're going to catch this. Claypool is a guy I would blow the load on, especially if I need a wide receiver. I think this guy is the real fucking deal. I would spend 40%, 50% even of my waiver wire fab to just go out and get this guy. I mean, freak athlete, 6'4", runs like a 4.3, has a 40-inch vert, and clearly can get it done. I mean, what team is better at identifying monster wide receivers beyond round one than the Steelers? Nobody. And this is Martavius Bryant. Think about all the years we burned 4th and 5th rounders in Martavius fucking Bryant. This guy doesn't have any of that baggage. He has all that, the measurables, none of the baggage. So to me, he is the type of guy that is going to change. We talked about last week, our like under 20% owned who's going to win leagues. Neither of us thought of Claypool. Nope. Now that he's showed why, 11 targets, 34% of the share, 3 rushes as well, just designing, whether Deontay Johnson's back or not. I think this guy is going to be the highest scoring Steelers receiver come the end of the season, more than Juju, more than Deontay. He showed every reason why this week. So bid everything on him.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks. Hopefully you're hearing this live. Like you said, hopefully you don't pull up like $5 short and have this guy end up like the wide receiver 10 or something for the year, and you could have had peanuts. All right. We're going to get into the show, but first, the show is brought to you by our glossary term of the week, which I feel like is actually pretty appropriate because a lot of the guys we're talking about, higher, lower, Hail Mary, stuff like that. And of course, like waiver wire, that was a different show earlier in the week. But this stuff is all significant, and especially now in week 6, it's becoming more and more of a factor. And of course, the word, the term, and this can be a noun or a verb, is hate cut. And you want to just real quick give the Wolves as quick as you can definition of what a hate cut is.
I mean, the definition's kind of in the word, right? Filled with rage over a person's lack of productivity, lack of meeting expectations, just in general pissing you off beyond all belief. And where most people would hold them because they're still 80, 75% owned, maybe even more than that, the rage within you just fuels the cut. No logic beyond just the cathartic release of cutting them makes sense. There should be a narrative for them to turn it around, but you just need to get them off your bench to 1, settle your fucking soul, and 2, send a message to your locker room. Like, this shit's not going to fucking fly. If I hate you because of how bad you are, you're getting out of here. And so I've definitely gone through some hate cuts. There's actually been a few hate cuts this week that probably shouldn't have been done actually prior to this week based on what we saw in this action. And some of the best pickups of this week are going to end up being people who were hate cut by frustrated owners that probably shouldn't have been. Most times you probably shouldn't do the hate cut, but it still feels fucking damn good. Can you just give me one example of a guy that you've hate cut in the past or this year, if you can think of it? I mean, I'm a notorious hate cutter as well. Oh, AJ Green. I didn't own him this year, but last year he never showed up for me. He was a great hate cut. Get the fuck off my squad. He should have been hate cut by owners already this year if he's still there. T.Y. Hilton, a great hate cut for this year. Who did I hate cut last year? There's one person that just felt so fucking good. I think it was like Dante Pettis in like week 2 or something like that. And he ended up being a nobody, but everybody was so hyped on him, and I put him in there, and it was just like the best feeling in the world after he gave me like literally a goose egg. Nothing like Eric Ebron I've done in the past. Like he had like a zero. Probably Cameron Brate. Yeah. So who did you say? Cameron Brate, maybe. Oh yeah, loser. But typically it's a bigger name than that. So this year, some people that shouldn't have been hate cut that were. In fact, I'm guilty of one of them. Brandon Cooks. I hate cut him last week, and he goes and puts up 160 in a TD. I'll be trying to get him back this week. That's all right. There should be a term for this also. And yeah. There should be a term for you hate cut somebody, then they go off, and then you have to spend big to like grovel to try to get them back. Yep. I've already done that once this year already. I mean, any listeners tuned in that have any ideas for people you've hate cut that then you have to go fucking tuck your tail between your legs and bid up for because you were wrong, let us know that as well. Cooks was one of them this week. Mike Williams was hate cut by a lot of owners, and with Herbert, who we called as our league winner on the mid-season or quarter season rather awards. Man, took one game to really show I think we're right there. And the thing with him, the rope and Mike Williams going up and getting that ball. Oh man, what a catch that was. Beautiful. He had 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, that guy is going to be blowing it up. Philip Lindsay was hate cut by a lot of owners, 50% owned. And we'll talk about Melvin Gordon in a second.
Glug, glug.
Glug. A few of too many of these. Yeah. And that's looking like it won't be quite the move there. So those were just a handful of guys that were often hate cut. Cooks, Williams, and Philip Lindsay that probably should be on rosters come tomorrow when this clears. If you're tuned in, let us know. We'll help you figure out what to cut for them.
Yeah, and if you're tuned in and you want to tell us some people that you think of that are synonymous with hate cutting, like we'd love to hear about it at the end of the show. All right, segment 2, we're going to get into our Week 6 trainer's room, and of course that's filled with news and of course all the injury updates that are all over the place, and there's a lot of them. We're not even, a lot has happened this week. Some have been hit on previous shows, so we're not going to be hitting all of them, but the ones that are the most relevant, the most current, we're going to talk about. Very first one, Le'Veon Bell has been released. Of course, anytime somebody that's a big name like him, even though, I know people that have hate cut Le'Veon Bell, just so you know. There's always tons and tons of rumors circulating immediately. Oh, he's going to go here. Oh, he's going to be a perfect fit here. So we, of course, are only thinking in terms of fantasy. What have you heard as far as where he could end up, and where would you love to see him end up?
Yeah, the rumored interest so far is the Patriots are one team that was in contact. The Dolphins, and so 2 divisional opponents right there. So no trade ended up going through. And also the Raiders were the teams that the Jets had apparently talked to about a trade and just couldn't end up working anything out. A lot of that probably being contract-wise too, because now that he's released, they're going to be on the books for a ton of dead money. And owners, other teams could just swoop them on in, and it won't matter. To me, none of those are totally ideal. I guess the Dolphins is a pretty wide open backfield. Gaskins has played really well, and I'd like to see him keep getting the opportunity. But ultimately, that's got to be one of the most open backfields in the league. So if he goes there for his own value, Le'Veon Bell, not an ideal in my personal opinion for fantasy purposes, but for his value, Dolphins wide open. And that Chan Gailey spread attack, they love peppering backs. We saw CJ Spiller, Fred Thomas, like all these guys had monster seasons in this Chan Gailey spread attack, as Gaskins is already kind of doing here. I feel like that would be a great spot for him. Patriots is just kind of like a mind-numbing. Is it Damian Harris? Is it James White? Like, you won't get your 3-down Le'Veon Bell there. I can see why they like him because he is so versatile, but I wouldn't love that fit for fantasy. Real life-wise, I'll take him all day as a Pats fan. Raiders, he's clearly behind Jacobs, and that just now it's like, oh, has this become a committee? Does that lessen Jacobs' appeal? I would kind of hate that personally for fantasy. My ideal would be the Chargers. Justin Jackson just put up 15-something points on 20 touches. Clearly was the better play than Josh Kelly here. And Eckler rumored to miss 4 to 6 weeks, but then a lot of reports coming out that tendon's like not attached to the bone, and they're underselling it. It's not good when it's not attached to the bone, right?
Right.
So that could be a lengthier injury, and with this young upstart Herbert, who's really just crushing it right now. I could see the Chargers being a really nice landing spot. The line is obviously garbage, but ultimately they'll get him out in space. They'll use him well. I'd also love the Texans just because I don't like David Johnson. And as we say every week, slower and slower by the week.
We said slower every week. We said that 2 weeks ago, and it's been proven true.
He's gotten slower since then. Exactly. So as long as he keeps getting slower, Le'Veon Bell would be a nice upgrade there. In my opinion. And then also, just go back to the Steelers. I mean, I know Connor's the guy, but we know Connor's going to go down. So what if we just get vintage Le'Veon Bell, who averaged over 21 fantasy points per game over his tenure there? That could be a nice landing spot as well. Chargers, Texans, Steelers, my personal favorites, in addition to the Dolphins, which is the rumored team he's going to go to, despite that destroying Myles Gaskin, who I love just watching right now. But those are the most interesting names, I would say, for Le'Veon Bell. What about you? Any that you'd agree or add to that?
Well, I think you covered the potential list. The one that, of course, came to my mind immediately was Houston. I feel like we've been playing this game with Houston certainly for as long as you and I have been doing this podcast, which is like 4 years. Yeah. But really, I think long before that, too, we've always just been like, basically like since Arian Foster, maybe, we've just been like waiting for that Houston running back that's going to put it all together. And instead, we've seen what Lamar Miller,
Foreman.
Jonte Foreman, right? Let's not forget about him. I mean, it's just been a bloodbath. And then, hey, David Johnson, 4 years past his prime or 3 years past his prime or whatever, maybe he'll work out. And I'm like, yeah, probably not. So that is the first place that I think. But then I wonder to myself, well, I mean, is he just David Johnson now? I mean, when was the last time Le'Veon Bell was good? It's been a while, right? So we're kind of assuming Le'Veon Bell is going to be Le'Veon Bell, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's the case anymore. So I mean, I wonder if they would just be not even upgrading if they put him in instead of David Johnson, and we'd be right back where we were. Yeah. I don't know. If I were a Pats fan and I were you, there would definitely, I know you are a Pats fan, but I know there would be a lot of appeal attached to that, just from a real football, not fantasy football point of view. I mean, he's clearly better than anybody you got.
Yeah. I mean, I love Damian Harris and what he's showing, but Le'Veon Bell, that experience and that versatility, Belichick and McDaniels would have a field day.
I'm sure Belichick would figure out what to do with that guy.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to Patriots and Broncos quarterbacks. The Patriots have activated Cam Newton, which I'm sure is music to your ears, off the reserve COVID-19 list. And just to kind of make sure both quarterbacks their quarterback issues are being addressed, Drew Lock, due to his shoulder issue, is practicing in full for Week 6 against the Patriots. Man, the Broncos are so bad.
Yeah.
When you say, I mean, like Drew Lock, when we're like, oh, Drew Lock's back, like it's like, is it going to matter? I don't think it's going to matter to you.
No, not at all. We'll cover the name that actually matters here. That's Cam Newton.
Let's not waste too much time on Drew Lock.
No, and we won't spend too much on Cam either because, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, higher, lower, Hail Mary. I'm very high on Cam Newton this week. Broncos is a tasty matchup to come back to. We've seen great ability from Cam as a runner, as a passer. This is huge news, and he's ranked way too low right now in the ECR. I expect that to come up now that he is officially cleared. It just seemed like the expectation. So I've had him in my top 6 quarterbacks all week, and he's going to certainly stay there. So we'll preview why and talk about why in a little bit. But if you have Cam Newton, there's only 5 quarterbacks I would play above him. So there's a great chance he's in your lineup if you're following my advice, at least. All about him. And in terms of Drew Lock, no, we shouldn't care. Jerry Jeudy, I do care about, and the Patriots D has surprisingly given up a good amount to wide receivers this year, certainly compared to last year when they were just like, you cannot play wide receivers against them. They've been top 12 in terms of most generous to wide receivers. I could see this being a nice boost to him. We've seen him getting it done with like Ripien or whatever the fuck that dude's name is. Rippin.
Nephew of like the Redskins quarterback, I think.
It's just horrible, dude. Like, come on.
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible. So, ultimately, no real interest in anyone outside Jeudy. Maybe Patrick had a big day, Tim Patrick. Maybe Ripien was just a better player than anybody they've had. But it's intriguing to maybe stash Drew Lock if you're in a 2 QB league, bye week desperation. I don't see a ton of value, but the weapons are there. The weapons are playing quite well. Sutton getting hurt certainly takes a little bit of that luster off. But we were pretty high on Lock coming into the year. And I think he's worth a stash in 2 QB leagues with deep enough benches just to see what he even does this week. Certainly you're not starting him, but a boost to some of those passing game weapons, in my opinion, and potentially.
First of all, just a hard pass on anything Drew Lock related. I don't care if you're in a 2 quarterback league, and I don't care if he's the only Broncos quarterback with like a winning record in at least 5 starts in like since Peyton Manning or whatever. I don't give a shit. But let's talk about some more interesting Broncos news, which is that Melvin Gordon, up and down Melvin Gordon, has got nailed for a DUI, and the coach is kind of hemming and hawing about if anything's going to happen about it. You can tell he doesn't want to do shit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And undecided if he will play and face the Patriots in Week 6. So, I mean, to me, that sounds like he's probably going to be out there. They might bench him for a quarter or something of that nature. But to me, that could be enough in the sense of, there will be some consequences, the exact quote. Okay, cool. And who knows if the league will step in and maybe suspend him at some point for this. The worry with that for a Gordon owner is, well, Lindsay's now coming off of, 3 weeks. He's been hurt, but Lindsay's like the best when his back's against the wall, when he has to earn it. And if you give this guy a quarter, Philip Lindsay, to just run against a Patriots team that ranks decent against the run so far this year, but I don't think they're anything special. Just watching them.
I don't either.
I think Lindsay could do some damage early on. And if he does, and they want to send a message, then it's like, okay, what if Lindsay just flips this entire script? And Gordon's been pretty damn solid this entire year so far. I think he's at least top 10, if not top like 9. He's up there in terms of his fantasy output so far this year, averaging about 20 touches since Lindsay got knocked out of the lineup. But I would not be shocked to see Lindsay kind of flip that switch. If he gets that first quarter work, he's a baller. And I've always loved Phillip Lindsay. And I would be very nervous now, whereas Gordon was probably top 16 or so in my rankings this week. I think top 13 even. He falls to like about running back 29, 30, and Lindsay's right there behind him if he takes over that hot hand, which he totally could this week.
So I have Phillip Lindsay and kind of was going to hate cut him for a while just because I was angry and I just kind of never got around to it. And so, as you can imagine, I was pretty thrilled that Melvin Gordon decided to have a wild night out in the town. You think at this point he's worth hanging on to for a little while?
Oh, absolutely. Just to see how this plays out, because if Gordon gets suspended and you get Lindsay just the full backfield to himself, he's going to eat. And if he just reestablishes himself this week with Gordon on the bench or whatever they end up doing, the door has been open for Lindsay to come in, carve out a role, potentially carve out a lead role for the foreseeable future as the team punishes Gordon. I do think eventually Gordon will be back to the guy, but Lindsay could certainly carve out like a 45, 50% role with a much greater share for these next couple of weeks while the team disciplines him. Well worth holding on to. The talent is certainly there.
All right, Jaguars wide receivers, Laviska Shenault, as well as DJ Chark. And Shenault, I believe his issue is a hamstring, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. We hate toe injuries. We hate hamstring injuries. Neither one of them practiced recently. So how worked up should anybody be about this?
I mean, Laviska Shenault came in with a hamstring injury last weekend and ended up putting up his career highs so far as a rookie. He's actually a top 25 in most scoring formats right now among wide receivers. And it still feels like we haven't come close to his crazy ceiling because he hasn't been used as a runner as much as he could. He's getting it done after the catch as we all expected, but the touchdowns haven't really been flowing yet. And he's still, again, top 25. So I'm not overly worried with him. It seems like a maintenance day because he had missed some time in practice and then set career highs last week. I am a bit worried about Chark. He limped off the field, did not return in the fourth quarter. And it just, to me, it looked pretty bad the way he was limping off. And that does have a pretty big trickle-down effect on this entire offense. We saw it on that Thursday night game against Miami. And we'll talk about it more with Gardner Minshew a little bit later. That's no good for this entire attack. I mean, Laviska could potentially see more targets if Chark misses time, and that seems to be a nice bump up. But the quality of the targets go down, and the quality of the overall offense goes down without Chark. So I think it's a pretty big concern, even against a pathetic Lions team, if Chark misses this game. And they're tougher against number ones. They're 17th fewest points. So, like, the minus 0.4 to wide receivers there. But they're easier to number twos, the 13th most generous to number twos. So, if Laviska suddenly becomes the one, I don't know if that necessarily will benefit him this week. It could, the way he's just kind of ascending and rising to the call. But I don't know. It seems to me, if I was going to guess, Chark misses the game, Laviska plays, and I don't think it helps anybody on the offense if Chark sits.
Might be time to re-sign Alan Hearns or Alan Hearns.
Alan Hearns.
Depending on how you want to pronounce it. All right, let's talk about Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Keep waiting for him to lacerate an organ or something that hasn't happened. But Anthony Lynn said Keenan Allen was dealing with back spasms Monday night against the Saints, and this is a direct quote, he will be fine.
It's important, though. As you're saying,
I know. That's like, is it even news? I mean, he says he's fine. So
it's big, and hopefully he actually means it, because who never knows what to believe with Anthony Lynn. But
I believe he's a shitty coach.
Seriously, just blowing game after game, despite having this Herbert guy balling, getting so fucking conservative and puckering butthole at the end of it. Fucking stupid. But Herbert has resurrected Keenan Allen right back to wide receiver 1 duties. 40% target share just about since Herbert took over. And the expected fantasy points have been monstrous, more than any other receiver. We're going to talk about this.
I can't wait to talk about that in a minute, actually.
It's an awesome thing we added to the site. I got to shout out Jackson Barrett. Unbelievable work there. And Keenan Allen leads all receivers in expected fantasy points largely because of what Herbert's been doing. So to me, if his owner was a little pissed off about that back spasm, because we've all had Keenan Allen and we've all had him fucking get dinged up and piss us off. Like, we all know it. So maybe if that's that owner right now pissed off and then also dealing with the bye week, maybe he could sneak in a little buy low offer, because it sounds like it was much ado about nothing, and he will be fine. And with Herbert, his value, again, probably it's certainly top 10 wide receiver. It depends on how high and how healthy he stays at this point, but ultimately a nice buy low, knowing that he's going to be fine for sure.
All right, we're going to move on to segment 3, and that is our trading tips of the week. And it's going to center largely around these expected fantasy points that the Wolf was just alluding to. And I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, I'm just now starting to really understand it. It makes an awful lot of sense. You want to walk us through that real quick and tell us who a couple potential bargains are, and maybe also a couple people that you should be looking to get off as quick as you can?
Absolutely. It's certainly a new thing I've been adding to my repertoire. I was not all that familiar. And then the more and more I've gotten in line with, Scott Barrett and some of these really great analytical guys, the more you learn about expected fantasy points. And essentially what it is they, certainly every touch is not equal. And even more so, red zone touches often get overrated because a touch between the 20 and 10 yard line is just like your normal touch. But once you get inside the 10-yard line, the value just like exponentially shoots up. Same with like your routine 5-yard target versus a 40-yard target. It's kind of obvious stuff when you break it down in that sense. Of course, a carry within the 5-yard line is way worth 10,000 times more than just your standard between the 20s carry. Of course, a target of 40 air yards is going to be worth more than your standard dink and dunk. But when you actually boil it all down together and come up with like this formula, again, I don't know how to do this. This guy, Jackson Barrett, he's an accountant and he knows spreadsheets and he just fucking like calculate all these formulas and blah, blah. It spits out these expected fantasy points, and they're fantastic because it tells you based on the touches, based on the down and distance, based on the way that the ball is traveling, how far and where it's going, how much they should be expected to put up. And then that also factors in, well, how much are they actually putting up? And what's the difference between those? Because when I've always bought low and sold high, I've almost only looked at schedule. And I think schedule is still very important. But if you do just look at these expected fantasy points and you see, okay, this player was expected to put up 30 this week. He only put up 22. Maybe he got tackled by a shoestring. Maybe he had something called back. Then you start to realize, well, I'm focusing on the opportunity that's being crafted for this player, not just the player themselves or their outputs. And that's a really good perspective to have. It's a great thing to kind of pair up with our workload report, which is like, this was the sheer usage. These were the numbers. And it's fantastic to just know the raw usage. And it's also good to see, well, how valuable is that usage they're getting. And it gives you a sense of who's way outperforming their expected. Like if a player was, expected to put up lower and they're putting up 10 plus more points, well, are they just getting lucky bounces, or are they actually just that good that they're always going to exceed it? So a lot of good factors. I would highly, highly, highly recommend anybody listening, go to rotostreetjournal.com, check out our week 6 buy low, sell high, because the expected fantasy points report is unbelievable.
All right, real quick. My wife and my son, I've both heard call me in like the last 3 seconds. So I want to set you up for our first buy low, and then I'll be back in like 2 minutes. You think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy that should be scoring more than he is, basically, and he's not.
Absolutely.
Based on their system, it sounds like he's the number one guy.
He's my favorite buy low in all of fantasy, no doubt about it. And so the reason why is you look at his expected fantasy points. He is going 6.7 fewer fantasy points per game than what is expected of him. So that tells me a couple things. One, he's getting schemed to perfectly. He's out there a lot. He's out there on red zone. He's getting a ton of catches. All of that is great. Things just aren't bending his way. Now, when a player goes that much lower than their expected fantasy points, it could be two things. He could suck, or he's just getting unlucky. Last week, for example, we saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire have a touchdown called back on him despite a nice receiving touchdown. Everything was good, then offensive pass interference. His points would have been much higher. So everything's getting schemed for him. The opportunities there within this offense, there's just too many little fucking flick passes and these weird little reverses. I think that trend will eventually bend. Or maybe this is just me being, a little bit stubborn because I just loved him so much coming in the year. But his expected fantasy points are telling me why I loved him. And the talent is there every time I see him touch the ball. It's just a matter of when's the luck going to finally bend his way and he scores those 2 to 3 touchdowns. Because it's going to come and it's going to happen, and you want to be the one buying him. And it doesn't hurt that his strength of schedule is one of the best for the rest of the season. 5 of his remaining matchups are against bottom 10 defenses against the run, against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed. 3 of those come against top 5 potential blow-up spots. So I love it. It's all green on the schedule. It's all green in the expected fantasy points. The man just has to have a couple things bend his way, and he's gonna light it up. So I'm all about buying low on Clyde Edwards-Helaire based on his fantasy points expected and based on his strength of schedule. I am also selling high right now on Robert Woods for kind of the opposite reasons. He's averaging over, almost 5 points more than his expected points per game, largely due to big plays, missed tackles. But he's seeing, only 99 target pace right now, far less than last year's volume. This offense definitely wants to be a bit more run heavy than we've seen in the past. Their defense is playing well enough to keep them in these kind of neutral scripts where they can pound. And I'm not buying necessarily, the blowups are going to keep happening, especially given he only has 2 matchups in the green. Now, granted, those are against Seattle, so 2 of the best possible matchups. But 50% of his matchups in the rest of the season for Robert Woods are against top 7 defenses. He had the easiest portion of his schedule these first 4 weeks and just never really lit it up. So I don't know what's going to suddenly change, why this offense would suddenly flip into this big pass-happy bonanza that's going to let Woods dominate. I was all about how he performed in the 12 personnel packages last year, and that is what they're running more. It just hasn't translated into that same fantasy success we saw down the stretch for Robert Woods. So to me, he's kind of a sell high because people still love him as that so safe wide receiver too. But really his production has not quite been there. And I think it's only going to go downhill with the schedule softening up and him kind of rising to the mean, or falling to the mean rather, of those expected fantasy points. So he's a sell high in my opinion.
Both of those guys, you said sell high on Robert Woods and you said, buy low on CEH. Both of those just scream correct to me, just kind of from my gut. And the fact that there's legit data to back it up, I love that so much. I also love the thing you were talking about where it's like a carry from the 12 is the same as a carry from the 35. And yet there's so much smoke blowing up our ass about these like red zone carries and stuff like that, which are just meaningless. Yeah. Like, once you get inside the 10, somebody like Derrick Henry or something like that,
we saw last night.
Right, we saw it last night. It's just, he's just going to pound. But like, from the 18-yard line, what's that mean? And like, as you said, I think you said this, but I certainly read it. The passing is the same as the running, basically. The numbers are pretty similar as far as like red zone not really mattering.
Yeah, exactly. Inside the 10 skyrockets. Right. 30 or more air yards, obviously skyrockets. But 20-yard, how many 20-yard inside the red zone touchdowns do we really see? Just not that much. And this isn't to hate on the red zone. The red zone is the greatest fucking creation of all time on the NFL Network.
Fantastic.
But it's still, inside the 10 is where that really, really tends to skyrocket.
All right. Well, I love that stuff. Check out the RSJ articles that we've got on this. I'm sure this is going to be a data set that we're using a lot more in the future. And my guess would be a lot of other people will be too.
Absolutely.
Right, we're getting into higher, lower, and Hail Mary. And the wolf, this has been the wolf's domain, his lair, his cave. I don't know. Where do wolves live? Lairs?
Like dens? Like the wolf den?
Yeah. Wolf,
I don't know exactly what a den is, though. Like, what is a wolf den?
Like a man cave, kind of.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. Anyway, oh, man, when we hit it big, you got to get the biggest pimped out wolf-themed man cave ever.
Just wolves howling at the moon. Yeah,
just total wolf decorum. You know what I mean?
The whole wall will be just like a panoramic of wolves howling at the moons and eating things. And I'll have just like sporadic jerseys, kind of just random like blow ups for the Irish. Mahomes would obviously be one, but like I'm trying to think of just like other random, just like Robbie Anderson last year in week 16 blew it up for us in a Jets jersey, nonetheless. Like just random ass jerseys like that. And wolves, of course.
Right. We need to make that happen. I'm willing to have a small chunk of our first profits go to that.
Perfect.
Right. Higher, lower, Hail Mary. Record last week. Is that your record from the last time that you got at the top? 7-3-1?
Yeah.
And 1 DMP. So, pretty good for the Wolf. Not too shabby. All right, let's get into it right now. Week 6 picks. Do you want smoke blowing up your ass about the week 4 ones? I mean,
I'd love to smoke up my own ass.
You're flexible enough to do that yourself.
Oh, yeah, bending on over. Right. But yeah, I mean, Rodgers, all 3 of my quarterbacks hit. Rodgers was higher. He ended up being the quarterback 3. I had him at 4. Joe Burrow, I had at quarterback 15, which was like 5 spots below ECR. He ended up being QB 20, so definitely was right calling him lower. And then my Hail Mary was Ryan Fitz, as it will be every single time this dude's under 20% owned. And he was the quarterback 10. So all of those panned out nice. Zach Moss didn't play, even though I had him as my higher running back. Unfortunate. At this point, he's cut bait. Done with him. Yeah. David Montgomery, lower. Always a good bet because
Montgomery and the under. Great bet.
Always great bets. On Thursday Night Football last week, he looked good. But 2 weeks ago, he was the running back 30. And I had him at like running back 25, and that was 8 spots lower than the ECR. So good lower. My Hail Mary didn't pan out with Brian Hill. Devontae Parker blew up with that Fitz stack. Terry McLaurin was my bench of the week that did not pan out 2 weeks ago. Hunter Renfrow did not pan out. So my receiver is only 1 for 3. But then Robert Tonyan, my Hail Mary tight end, dude puts up 35 whatever the fuck points on Monday Night Football. Got some Wolfpack. And the best is when people listen and then actually act upon the advice and then send in like screenshots. Because one thing for me to get it right, like cool, I do like the ego boost, no doubt. But when actually people win on the advice and you say, you saved me my week, love it. So yeah, 7-3-1. Hope to kind of, anything above 500 is always great, especially when you're involving Hail Marys. So to start at about 70%, not bad for the Wolf. I got to keep this thing rolling.
All right, well, this is your chance to do it. Let's get into quarterbacks. Guy, you're higher on. You alluded to this earlier in the show. Cam Newton, you got him as your QB6. That's 11 higher than the experts. I mean, that's a really, really substantial difference. And you do have some pretty substantial differences in these picks. I've looked them over. These are not like, I like two spots better than the experts. Like, these are legitimate differences you've got. Why so high on Cam? I mean, he has looked good before the COVID, definitely.
Yeah, it's more so. Why is so low? Why is he QB 17? Now, imagine the rankings.
Who's above 7? Like, that's so low.
Exactly.
Who's the QB 16? Somebody shitty, probably.
Oh, exactly, right? Like, very shitty. So I imagine that will kind of sometimes early week injury news like has people freaked out. I bet you this adjusts and he gets himself up to QB 12-ish range. But I'll still be 6 spots higher at that point. And it's pretty easy to understand why. 2 of his 3 games have been top 7. He gets a date with the bottom 7 defense in the Broncos in terms of points allowed to quarterbacks. He ranks, they rank 6 in rushing yards allowed per game, despite only playing 4 games and facing Big Ben, Tom Brady, like statues. Sam Darnold ran for 80 yards on this fucking team. And a lot of that is because they play a lot of man coverage and they have their backs turned to the quarterback. Now, maybe they'll adjust, obviously, when you have a Cam Newton, but still, a heavy man team is going to set up well for a lot of running from Cam Newton, and that's, of course, where the fantasy gravy comes in for quarterbacks. So I love him to run all over this team. I think he'll throw for a couple scores. He'll probably pound in a goal line carry or 2. I think it's a no-brainer to me that he finishes top 10, never mind potentially top 5. So quarterback 6 is right where I have him, and I love it.
All right, so as surprising as it was to me and to you that they had Cam as low as he was, I don't think that was as surprising to me as how high they had this next guy.
Yeah.
Which is Gardner Minshew. They had you have him as your QB 15, which sounds like about right, maybe a little generous. I don't know. But the thing is, you've got him 9 spots lower than the experts. Do the experts really have this guy as the QB 6?
Yeah, QB.
On my sheet, it says 8 on your banner there. Either way, I'm appalled. I just want to know, like, what Sell me on that, please.
I can't sell you on why he'd be at QB8. That makes no sense to me at all. But I can tell you why I'm significantly lower.
You don't have to, but go ahead.
I don't understand it. But I do guess, he's been over 22 fantasy points on the year in every game but one. Okay. So, he's had a good season, and they've been chucking it like over 40 pass attempts almost every single game, and he's getting it done. But the one game that he was significantly lower was without DJ Chark. And to me, I don't think Chark's playing this week. And he only had 14 fantasy points that week. He's only in career games without Chark, averaged 1 touchdown per game. He threw for averaging 238 yards per game without Chark as well. So 238 and 1 touchdown is the average without this number one. And it's only been 3 or so games without Chark. But it is significant, the effect this has on the entire offense. Detroit's not like a terrifying matchup, but I like a lot of quarterbacks. Like Cam Newton's ranked below Minshew. Come on. Ryan Tannehill, who just put up 30-something below Minshew. Come on. Like, I don't mind the mustache, but there's definitely 14 or 15 guys I will have above this guy, no doubt, and that's especially if Chark plays. Or Chark sits, rather.
I don't mind the mustache either. Like, I want to pull for him, but let's stay grounded in reality at least a tiny bit here.
Right.
Come on. I'm not some big Ryan Tannehill homer, but I'd way rather have him than Gardner Minshew.
Not even close.
He looked pretty good in that game, by the way.
You know what's crazy is how just like everybody screamed that offense was going to regress because their ridiculous red zone success rate, and it was like 80% of their red zone trips ended at a touchdown, which was unheard of. They're right around like 80% again. And I think Tannehill's legit. And I think Arthur Smith, especially their play caller, he's going to be a great head coach. Somebody's going to get lucky and take that guy as a head coach. They should have already, based on how good that offense was. But now we're seeing it 2 years in a row. So I don't think it's a fluke at all with Tannehill. Maybe when Arthur Smith's gone, down to earth, but I'm into it.
Spoiler alert! I had Dak, and of course we know what happened to Dak. And I was able to pick Tannehill up off waivers because his game wasn't till Tuesday. So that's my replacement. I actually feel pretty good about it.
Absolutely. I think you got yourself a nice top 12 clearly guy the rest of the season. Definitely.
I agree. Hail Mary. We've already kind of said who your Hail Mary is. What is it called when someone's like a professor forever? Like it's some Latin thing. I forget what it's called. Like if you're a boxing champion and they give you like the honorary like champion emeritus or something like that. I feel like this is your Hail Mary, whatever that Latin word is, which means he's going to be it forever and until further notice.
Yeah, until he's more owned than 21%. He's been under 30% owned, even though he just routinely blows up. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick, baby. Like, why not go back to this well? He literally is quarterback 6 in fantasy points behind only Russ, Mahomes, Allen, Dak, and Kyler. So I mean, the dude is already balling. He's, again, the quarterback 6 in 2020, not carrying over any stats. He's put up 27.6, 26.8, 24.4, and 31.1 in his last 4 games. Top 10 quarterback in all of those weeks. 69% top 12 performances in his last 16 games. 11 of 16 have been top 12. I don't know what track record we need to see beyond this. Imagine if Sam Darnold was putting up those numbers, we'd all be fucking jerking off because he was like such a high round pick and shit. Like, no.
There would be a perfect jerk from here to New York. Just
exactly.
Like 800,000 people involved.
Just ropes and ropes and ropes. But for Ryan Fitzmagic, despite him being far more rootable for, if that's a word, rootable.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's a word.
Who doesn't want to root for Ryan Fitzmagic? Remains 21% owned. I don't get it. Averaging 23.4 per game and now gets the Jets. What more do you need? The Jets. Awful. There's nothing good about the Jets. There's a great like ESPN article that's like strengths and weaknesses of every team. And it was like strengths. And this is like ESPN trying to be professional. It's like strengths, none. Weaknesses, everything. When they were reviewing the Jets, they were 32nd on the list. They're not going to win a game this year. And Fitzmagic's going to bomb them, just like he put up 350 and 3 touchdowns against the fucking 49ers, a better defense. He's going to kill them.
If you had just come in and said he's playing the Jets, we could have just moved on to running back.
That's all we needed, right? Never mind the track record we're getting from them.
Also, the word that I alluded to earlier, I looked it up because I knew I wasn't imagining it. It's emeritus. And it is like Latin. It doesn't exactly apply to Fitzpatrick the way I thought. It's having retired but allowed to retain their title as like a honor or professional courtesy. So anyway, he hasn't retired yet.
Not quite yet. Yeah,
right.
Tua will take over, but I'll still promote Ryan Fitz just so we can use the word emeritus again.
So like as far as I give myself like on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 6 maybe as far as being smart.
Pretty generous.
5.5.
Pretty generous.
All right, let's go to running backs. Guy you're higher on, Myles Gaskin. This is another guy, like I said, you've been putting your neck out there a little bit. You got him as your RB17. The experts have him at, I think, 28. I'm assuming a lot of this has to do with the matchup.
Jets, as you said, but just check that off and move forward, right?
Okay, fair enough. I love him too.
Exactly. But fifth most points to running backs. So the Jets, as bad as they are against the pass, worst to running backs. Tied for second with 7 touchdowns, given up on the ground. And that's the big thing for Gaskins was last week, Jordan Howard was a healthy scratch. He, 16 carries for 18 yards and like 5 touchdowns. I mean, the dude had been eating the touchdowns away from Gaskins doing all the work. And then we saw Gaskins pound one in the end zone last week. That unlocks just a huge new level of ceiling that clearly, if he's running back 28 in rankings right now, people have not recognized how much higher his ceiling is now that he's getting goal line work, especially when you're facing the Jets, which, again, probably needs to only be the point here. But I think Fitz puts his points up early. I think they're bleeding the clock in that type of script, especially if Jordan Howard's active again, this might change things a little bit. But why would they go back to him? Gaskins keeps dominating here. I think he finds pay dirt at least once, if not twice. Only 5,400 on DraftKings too this week. I love me some Myles Gaskin. Speaking of Dolphins running backs that we used to like that fooled us like 4 or 5 different times, is Jay Ajayi still in the league? Oh no, he went to the Eagles last year and no, I remember, but I mean he's not like on a roster somewhere. Nope, he's gone. That guy, he's been hate cut a few times. Yeah. Oh yeah. He deserves his hate cuts every time too. Running backs that you're lower on. I actually really like this piece. Let's talk about the Ravens. What a shitty running situation that has turned into. And I don't really understand why. They're up all the time, right? Yeah. So what's going on? There's literally zero rhyme or reason. There's not a mop-up guy. There's not a receiving down guy. There's not a goal line guy. Every single week, it's something different. And give Greg Roman credit because he said that coming into the year. He goes, all we're going to do is try to confuse defenses, which we should have all known as all they're going to try to do is confuse us as fantasy owners. Hat tip to him. Last week, Mark Ingram saw 11 carries, and that's the most a single running back has seen all year with the Ravens. Yeah, ridiculous. 11 carries is the season high. And as you said, in mop-up duty, when all they should do is run and all they, but it's not like it'd be one thing if like Gus Edwards was the cleanup guy. We got a lead and we know Gus Edwards is going to get it. Or Mark Ingram was like the early down guy and we knew he was going to get all that work and Dobbins would be the third. No, there's just literally nothing that suggests when or why a guy is going to be in. Right now, Edwards has 32% of the snaps, Ingram has 33%, and Dobbins has 35%. And it's never clear who's going to get the goal line work. Week 1, it looked like it was Dobbins' job. Then it was Ingram. Then instead, there's nothing that tells us anything about what's going to happen week to week. So how could these guys ever be in your starting lineup? You can't own any of these guys, right? Yeah, I mean, I'd hate cut any of them at this point. I'd cut Dobbins everywhere. As talented as he is and as great as he is, there's no way you can start any of these guys. And honestly, I think they're burning just a hole in your roster at this point. Agreed completely. Hail Mary. Philip Lindsay, who we talked about before, and also I'm cringing to see Royce Freeman also on this list because I would love it if he was not a factor at all. Obviously, Melvin Gordon. By the way, I'm drinking an excellent beer. You had those double IPAs, the ones where you're talking like 8.5%. Love them. A couple of those, and I'm pretty loose. That's what I've been working on here. Really good brewery out of East Hampton. Let's see it. Here it is, right here. It's the Abandoned Building Brewery. Ooh, a little more over, yeah. You'll have to excuse me. I've had a couple of these, but anyway, it's really, really good double IPA. And I've got my favorite beer of all time, Swish, by Portland-based brewery Bissell Brothers up in Maine. My favorite beer of all time. Another 8%er, double IPA. Oh, okay, so we're on the same page. Just juicy haze bomb, so good. They only release it a couple times a year. And it sells out in like, boom, 2 minutes. You have to like pre-order it on like a Tuesday to go pick it up on a Saturday type of beer. Got some last week.
They don't just bring, even for you. They don't just bring it to you.
Not yet. Maybe cheers, Wolfpack. Look at this face. You want to sponsor us? Free cases, absolutely.
And we've gone on record as saying that we will drink. I'll drink 4 of these during a show if you'll look us up.
You hook us up, absolutely.
Right, I would do that. So anyway, Melvin Gordon. That was just our little tangent. Melvin Gordon drank a few and then went out driving and got a DUI. And the coach is kind of on the fence about whether anything's going to happen to him. And the Wolf laid out this case pretty well before. Philip Lindsay is a spark plug type guy. If you let him get his foot in the door, sometimes like that's all he needs. And so that's why he's worth taking a chance on, right?
And that's really it. Yep. I think you could get the hot hand early against New England, who I think is overrated as a run D. And I think he could do some damage. And the Royce Freeman calls, if they decide to sit Melvin Gordon, there's rumblings they might want to trade him. And there's always that like showcase week where you got to get a guy 10, 12 touches just to show what he can do. I would be, I could see him falling into the end zone. And at this point, when you're going for a Hail Mary, all you really want is a fall into the end zone type of guy. So Lindsay's certainly the top choice, again, out there in over half of leagues. But Royce Freeman, if you're desperate beyond all belief, could be a Hail Mary running back for you.
I think it's a good call. You would have to be really desperate to go.
Really desperate.
It would have to be a bad scene. All right, let's go wide receivers. And apologies if you're somebody who's been sitting on Royce Freeman for some reason. Kenny Golladay, you got him as your wide receiver 12. That's 11 spots higher than the experts going against the Jags. Sell me on it. I feel like Stafford still throws a pretty good deep ball, right?
Still can sling. And Galladay's been kind of eased in since coming in hurt. But he's also performed pretty damn well since coming in hurt. 57 in a TD on 6 catches his first game. Then he gets, 4 for 62 and a touchdown. Was the wide receiver 22 both of those weeks. That's not bad for coming off an injury, missing some time. Now he gets the bye week to really, he's got his legs under him. He gets a week to kind of rest up. I think he comes in finally 100%, and he comes into a pretty good smash spot against the Jags wire team, giving up the 7th most points to opposing wide receiver 1s right now. Pretty good against number 2s. So it's one of those defenses that it should funnel over to Kenny Golladay. We haven't seen that blow up yet. Again, wide receiver 22 so far, a nice floor. I think this is the week we finally get that Golladay blow up game, and he exceeds all expectations.
I feel like when you can hang around somebody like Golladay, if you're hanging around in the 20, 25, 22, and you haven't really blown up yet, I find that pretty encouraging. I mean, it'd be frustrating not to have had the blow up game yet, but he's putting up consistent numbers. Like you said, the floor is pretty good, and the upside is substantial. Cooper Kupp, talking about guys that you are lower on, he's playing the 49ers, who really didn't even look like a professional football team when last we saw them. I mean, there's plenty of people I'm thinking about hate cutting there. I'd love to just talk about the Niners at some point, but maybe now's not the time. You got him as your wide receiver 21. The experts have him as 8, which just seems ludicrous to me, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's only been top 8 once this year. And I mean, after what we saw happen to the 49ers, I kind of see it. Like the Dolphins just destroyed this team, Ryan Fitzmagic. So could Goff do that? Sure. But to me, I feel like this game is just going to be gross, like running back and forth and bleed the clock and let's get out of here type of game. I don't see this one shooting out, which is what I think it has to do for Kupp to hit that top 8 projection. I mean, the guy's been the wide receiver 58, 26, 8, 16, and 34. So really only 2 solid games. And now we're going to crown him as the wide receiver 8 just because Miami went and steamrolled San Fran. They're getting a healthier corner. What's that?
That has to be why, though. I mean, this has to just be almost completely based on the fact that people saw the 49ers play recently and were like, wow, that team doesn't even look like a pro team. So obviously Cooper Kupp's going to have a big game, which is kind of a little bit of flawed logic.
And I think it's a little bit recency bias because it's not like I'm here endorsing the San Fran defense, but they had been okay against wide receivers and just in general coming into this game. So I don't see it. I don't think the 49ers blow up. I mean, the Rams rather blow up. I think they try to control this game and it ends up being a mediocre day, as Kupp's been in every game other than 2.
All right, let's talk about your Hail Mary, Mecole Hardman. You kind of sneaky like Mecole Hardman, don't you?
I love Mecole Hardman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've always had a hard-on for this guy.
Do you see him race Tyreek in the
He won, right?
No, I think Tyreek won. Although they kind of were like weird about it. They both kind of said the other one won, but it looked to me like Tyreek won.
Huh.
And I mean, I saw a video that I'm sure you've seen. You know the video where like the punt return or something for somebody on the Chiefs, and then they're just way out in front running, and then Tyreek just comes from behind and catches the guy from like 30 yards back to be his blocker. And it's like he's literally running like twice as fast as everybody else on the entire field.
Yeah.
It's just like the most amazing display of speed I've ever seen. And Hardman's like about as fast as him.
It's crazy. To have both of those guys with Mahomes too is like –
oh, right. No. And with Travis Kelce, who we hate, but really is pretty awesome.
Still a ridiculous threat. And they will be without Watkins, which is the kind of reasoning for why this guy, if you own him, has to be in lineups. The fact that he's only 12% started is going to blow my mind if that carries over. He's only 40% owned. Both of those numbers have to shoot upwards because they're facing a Buffalo team we just saw get decimated by the Titans, not the Chiefs, the Titans. So now we got the Chiefs coming to town off a game where they got embarrassed by the Raiders. You know Mahomes is going to be gunslinging. You know Andy Reid is going to want to just fucking jam it down everybody's throat. And what better way than with Mecole Hardman, who had the most touchdowns in the league of 30-plus yards, tied with Kenny Golladay, who we talked about earlier, and had the most touchdowns of 40-plus yards, tied with A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Kenny Golladay, and Stephon Diggs. He also did that on 26 receptions. Four 40-plus yards touchdowns on 26 receptions. These other guys doubled or tripled his targets and receptions there. So this is the type of week where you're going to get 7-8 Hardman targets with no Watkins in the lineup. And you got to imagine one of those 40-yard bomb TDs is greatly in play after we saw this Buffalo team. They're horrible. They're giving up in terms of like, there's a great new stat that's been kind of the rage these days is matchup over like the average. So it's kind of like strength of schedule, but then it factors in your opponents as well. So like the Bills have faced garbage receivers and yet they're still giving up like 20 something points per game. So then now they're like fourth in terms of points allowed over average or whatever the exact stat, I'm not sure I explained it perfectly.
No, I get
you get the idea. And Tre'Davious White could be out again. And if he isn't, he's probably going to follow Hill. So to me, I'm all about Hardman blowing up again.
All right, let's move on to tight ends to finish things out. Mike Gesicki, who a friend of mine, Johnny Goodtimes, I've talked about before, he had him early in the year and he blew up once or twice and he rode him like crazy and talked a ton of shit and then he cut him. And now you want to know who's starting at tight end for him now?
Oh, God.
Gronk.
Oh, why? Johnny, come on. You're better than that, Johnny.
What a dumbass.
Huge
anyway,
dumbass.
Gesicki, you got him as your tight end 7, 8 higher than the experts. The experts not giving him much love either, but I would like to point out, for those of you watching at home and listening at home, he is playing the Jets, which is a recurring theme of this segment.
3 out of 4 of them have been people facing the Jets. I think that's really all you need to know here. The tight end 6 on the season faces the Jets, and he's not top 10 in rankings. Really, that's all it comes down to. He's been a beast after the catch. He's been a beast at the point of attack. The 49ers, for all their faults on defense last week, they have good coverage linebackers, and Gesicki put them in a blender. So this guy is legit, and he's facing the Jets. That's about it. That's all you really need to know.
Do you like the Miami defense streaming this week?
Oh, yeah. All about streaming Miami this week. Yeah,
I agree.
I'm going aggressively after them.
All right, Dalton Schultz, you're lower on him. You got him as your tight end, 13. That's 6 spots below the experts playing against Arizona. What do you think?
Yeah, it used to be Arizona was like, remember last year? It was like, whoever's facing Azera, insert here. But they've gotten better. They've tightened that shit up this year. And Dalton Schultz, to me, he's Dalton Schultz. His name is Dalton Schultz. What else do you need to fucking know?
You got to be lower on him.
You got to – it's fun starting him. I think last week I was like, you get to start a guy named Dalton, which is fun. But when you have Andy Dalton now throwing him the ball, Dalton Schultz is a complete product of the system, of Dak, leading the NFL in yardage passing wise of this offense, putting up 32.6 per game, third most in the league, operating at a blistering 19-second pace. Are they going to really do any of that with the red rifle behind center? No. So is Dalton good enough to sustain those wide receivers at like 75, 80% of what they were doing? Maybe. I think Dalton Schultz is going to be the one that takes the biggest hit here because of the touchdowns. That's a big part of his expected fantasy points. The huge sheer passing volume because of the pace, huge part of his success. I just don't think that's going to be there with Andy Dalton. And so you're looking at your usual touchdown or bust guy, which should not be ranked as a top 7 guy.
That's your Hail Mary guy.
Exactly. That's like your Hail Mary. That's what he is at this point, in my opinion. Speaking
of Hail Marys, Irv Smith Jr. going up against Atlanta, which I'm sure has something to do with that. These are a lot of matchups that just kind of scream, play whoever these people are. Man, Atlanta sucks.
Oh, man. They absolutely suck.
They're they're awful. I mean, I don't even really know who Irv Smith Jr. is, except that he's 2% owned, but that's on the banner, so I don't even get any points for that. But I see he's going against Atlanta, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should check him out.
That's really what it comes down to is anybody against Atlanta is worth it, but he did have 5 targets. He's been a nobody all season. He's one of those guys that got super hyped all offseason on Twitter because he is very athletic. He's the prodigy of Irv Smith Sr., who had quite the NFL career. So, I mean, he comes from good blood and had those elite like athletic traits, but's always been behind Kyle Rudolph and just never put it all together. He's only a sophomore, so a slow, blossoming type of a thing here. But last week, 4 catches, 64 yards against a Seattle team that's actually pretty good against the tight ends. So then you take that and then put it against Atlanta, who is the worst in terms of that adjusted fantasy points per schedule stat I was saying, second to in just sheer points allowed to only New Orleans. I mean, it's just a blow-up spot for anybody facing Atlanta. They're giving up 30 points in every game except one so far this year. And I think this guy finds the end zone for the first time and kind of builds on that nice usage. A great streamer if you're desperate at tight end, in my opinion.
All right, that's going to do it for high or lower and Hail Mary. We're going to move on to the hypothetical of the week. This one is, I guess the last one was a little weird too, but I'm going to give you a weird one right now.
As expected.
All right. So you know how you've seen Training Day, right?
Of course.
Okay. You know how like Denzel, what's he sneak Ethan Hawke? Was it meth?
Yes.
All right. So let's say, so your first option is someone like a trusted friend. So let's say me slipped you some meth. And so you're kind of wigged out, or you're about to wig out, and kind of like drive you into this neighborhood. And I'm like, hey, I convince you or whatever that like this house or whatever on the street, belongs to me, and you should go check it out and like hang out there for a while, and I'll be there, and it's all good. And you're like, you totally believe me because you're on meth and because I'm your buddy. So anyway, you go in there, and it's kind of like the middle of the night. You're kind of like milling around in this house, and you hear like stomping coming down the stairs, and you look up, and Ndamukong Suh is running down the stairs. You've broken into his house. Okay. But you're on meth.
We love bringing it back to Sue, by the way. It's always, we've had some great hypotheticals.
Well, I just try to think about like who's like the worst guy, like who's the guy that I would least want to find myself in a situation like this, both combination of just brute physical strength and just crazy angry. Like I think there's a good chance he'd hurt you no matter what. And of course, like you're not your usual like laid back wolf. Like, oh my gosh, Mr. Sue, I'm so sorry. Because you're on meth. Like you're like at this point, like you're a real wild card, and he's a wild card anyway, even not on meth.
Yes.
So anyway, here's the deal.
Am I alone, by the way, at his house? Like I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for my friend to show up, or like
you're like moving around, like you're going through drawers and stuff
by myself, though, right?
Yeah, but yeah, and let's say like his family's upstairs, like he's concerned about their and you don't just run like because you're wigged out. So anyway, so it's like let's say it's going to be 15 minutes before anybody intervenes on this, and it could go fine. Like you guys could become buddies by the end of it, or like he could.
Most likely not.
Possible it could go another way. So that's the first option. 15 minutes in a house that you've broken into with Ndamukong Suh while you're wigging out on meth. That's option number one.
Tough option.
Option number 2 is I want you to think of, say, like you have fantasy opponents that you just hate, right?
Of course.
I'm not talking about football guys. I'm talking about people you know, like people like me or people like in your hometown league, people that you hate.
All of them.
No, but there's some you hate more than others.
Oh, yeah, like the most hated. Yeah.
Sure. David Mock you probably hate, right?
Oh, despise.
Okay, so let's say pick your 3 most despised fantasy rivals.
Yep.
Okay, and you will lose to them every time you play them in any league for the next 10 years.
Oh man, that's painful. No, I
know. I had to think of something that would really hurt you, because otherwise you'd just be like, I'm not doing meth and going to Ndamukong Suh's house.
Yeah, I mean, right. I thought you were gonna say like 2 years, and I was like gonna still be on the fence here.
No, 10 years.
I think 10 years.
Like, you're not allowed to say like this is a magic bet. This is like you're going into these things and you're hoping to win every time and you're losing. Sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't even. Is it one of those things where I don't know necessarily I'm gonna lose every time? I just have the hope every time.
You don't know. No, that's part of it. It's like you think you're not like demoralized. You think this is gonna be the time, and it's just not.
Oh man, right. It's got to be.
Think about the pain that, like, think about the emotional stress that would cause.
Right, because I don't know that I make it, especially because the reason I hate them so much is the amount of shit they talk when they win. So it's like,
oh, yeah.
3 times a year, maybe more, if it ends up being that I face them twice or I see them in the play. Then it's a matter of what if I see them in the playoffs, right? That means I would never win a fantasy title over 3 years, over 10 years. So yeah, it's got to be. I just hope for the best. See, I've never done meth, so I don't know what tripping out.
Either, but I mean, I think it makes you kind of unpredictable.
Yeah, like I would hope to God I like just kind of like hug him and I'm just like, you're a big man. I like you. And maybe stroke. I've seen like the shows where like they stroke like walls and stuff. So maybe I just kind of like. What's that?
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could see myself kind of like cozying up and like he'll kick my ass for that. Yes, I'll get a beating. I just hope I don't like jerk out and like give him a quick like a little jab as if I'm like this tough guy.
Right.
Because we know how that goes. If I come in like peace, he'll kick my ass, but not so hard. I think I'm more of a peaceful guy, and like even if I'm bugging out, I would know in my heart if like a 270-pound man comes storming down the stairs angry. I'd like to think I would at least kind of be like, hey, sorry. Right. Who knows? Again, I don't know how I'd act. And there certainly is death on the line there, which is scary. But like the idea of me losing to those 3 for 10 straight years kind of, and they're pretty good, the ones that I hate. So like there's a good chance I'd be seeing them in the playoffs.
Who are your top 3?
Dave Mock's one of them. Bailey is my like long-term rival. I don't know if you know Pat Bailey.
I know of him because you've complained about him before.
Yeah, he's up there. And I'm trying to decide if like it would be in my family league or if I keep it in my main Beverly league.
Yeah, what if like you didn't beat like Alex for like 10 years?
Right, like that's tough. That's like a good measure of pride there too. So it would probably be him or my cousin, which just talks the most relentless amount of shit. It would be tough. I don't think I could accept it. Right, especially if it's in one league too, that means you're probably knocked out. If we have to keep it concentrated, that means I'm probably not going to win. If it's 3 times a year, guaranteed losses. So, 0-3, essentially, you're starting the year. That's a tricky hole, right? Like there's a good chance I'm not making the playoffs at least 50% of the time, which just, again, I'm 2-3 right now. And my world is the darkest it's ever been right now.
Right.
So I can only imagine like every season being in that type of hole. I'm taking Sue. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping I don't get smart or silly or like.
I think the worst thing that could happen to you is if he comes down the stairs and because you think it's the house you're supposed to be in, you're startled and you become aggressive. Like,
yeah, that'd be awesome.
You doing anything like you start challenging him.
Yeah, this is my house, man. That would be tough. That would be inviting a bear to just kill you essentially.
Right. So that. And then the next question would be like, would you rather it was Ndamukong Suh or a bear? And we can talk about that another time.
I think a bear I would know to run from because it's like a bear. Whereas another human I might try to interact or get clever with. So I'd probably pick the bear instead. So I would know to.
bears and humans. They both scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the way, we need to get a sponsor for this segment. So if anybody wants to sponsor that, I can do this all day. The mailbag. I got a question I want to start the mailbag with real quick. Someone texted me in the middle, so he's probably not going to show up. But I got our first mailbag question if you want it.
Let's do it.
All right, this is my buddy Mike. He wants to know. He says, first time question asker, but long time listener and viewer. Is Justin Herbert a top 12 quarterback moving forward? He really wants to know.
100%. I have him number 9 rest of season. I already had him 10 before Monday Night Football, and then that just again kind of confirmed it. Gunslinger mentality, great deep ball, like the nuts to he's just got it all. And he's doing it with like Keenan Allen knocked out and then Eckler knocked out. And like he just keeps getting it done. So I'm all about him. Absolutely top 10 rest of the season. Yes.
Oh, he said top 12, but okay, top 10 rest of the season. There you go, Mike.
Yes.
All right, what else we got? Ooh, David Richards wants to know Robert Tonyan or Dalton Schultz. We love Dalton Schultz on this show. Actually,
yeah,
we were low on it.
My lower of the week was Dalton Schultz. Give me Tonyan. He's only banned for me every time I predict him. Number, I think, 2 in fantasy. Yep, 2 in fantasy points per game right now among tight ends. Actually, Jonnu Smith's 2, and he's 3rd, Tonyan. So, yeah, I mean, the guy's a beast. He's got the red zone trust, touchdown in 3 straight. All about it, yeah.
Brendan, 97. Should I trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire for DJ and Edelman?
No, because David Johnson sucks. He's only going backwards.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about David Johnson, but DJ could mean a couple people actually.
And it's still, even if it's DJ Moore, like
no, I think it's a no. No, I'm trying to think of any DJ where I would be like, no, yeah, you should do it, and I can't come up with one.
Right. No, and Edelman is like, yeah, he'll have his nice games when the game flows right, but he is so game flow dependent the way this offense now is that no way.
Add Claypool or Madison. That's an interesting. I like that.
That's and I've gotten that one a few times on Twitter, EKPU, in terms of who's the number one. You're essentially asking who's the best guy to add this year. To me, or this week rather, to me it's Claypool because you're going to get rest of season value, I think guaranteed. That's how high I am on this guy. I think he's like a top 25 or so guy, in my opinion. The rest of the way. And again, as I said with the truth earlier, like I wouldn't be shocked to see Claypool lead this team in wide receiver points come the end of the year. He's got the most physical specimen talents and he's dominating those X snaps. It's just like, Mike Tomlin, for whatever faults you want to point out, when he sees something work, he rides it. Whether that's a bell cow back, whether that's Antonio Brown, like whoever it is, he will ride. So when he just decided, because of injury with Deontay Johnson, let's kind of give Claypool some targets, see what happens. And all that happened was Claypool just fucking dominated. So why is he going to suddenly go away from that? That's not Tomlin's MO. And I think Claypool's going to keep rising to the occasion. So to me, he's got far more long season term value. Now, if you're like 0-5, you got no running backs, you had Dalvin Cook. Like there's situations where Madison makes more sense for your team because against Atlanta this week, you're looking at 20 points probably, at least. But for season-long potential, most teams, I would recommend Claypool. What do you think?
I like Madison, though.
I do love Madison.
I mean, your argument is a sound one. The guy's really good. It seems like if the Cook injury was worse, I'd say Madison. But it doesn't. I mean, there's a groin injury that everything I'm seeing says it's not severe. Sometimes groin injuries can be tricky, but odds are you're going to get a solid game or two out of this guy. I mean, and then look, Cook could get. I mean, it's not like Cook hasn't been injured in the past,
right?
And Madison he's a stud. Like my guess would be he's going to have a starting running back job somewhere in the near future. Yeah, maybe on the Vikings, maybe somewhere else. But it's hard to argue with your logic on that if you're talking about a rest of the season guy.
Right, and so you'll get week 6, right? You're guaranteed almost at this point against Atlanta. Great spot, but they have the bye next week. And all the expectations are is Cook's going to be kind of ready. It's a 2 to 6 week injury, but they're kind of hinting at the fact that like he's even thinking maybe I could go this week. If they have him go this week, they're fucking dumb. So I think you're getting Madison full go for a game, but like if it's just one game, again, as you said, Truth, it's like Cook has that injury history. So if you told me Madison's going to get 4 to 5 starts between now and the end of the year, now we're talking. But as of right now, what we're looking at, it's looking like one game is all we got for a guaranteed start for Madison.
Let me ask you a hypothetical here, not like the hypothetical I did before, but an actual fantasy football hypothetical. Here's my 4 receivers. We play 2 receivers, 2 flex. And so I can start 4 receivers. I'm going to list you my 4 guys, and you tell me if you think Claypool is better than any of these guys moving forward for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Allen Robinson.
No.
Right. DK.
No.
Hollywood Brown.
No, but could be.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's high praise. I mean, because Hollywood's awesome.
Yeah, and I love Hollywood too, but like there's that we saw it 45-point blow up, like upside, and I don't think it's like a 1-week flash in the pan by any means. So that's getting closer. The first 2, no, not even.
No chance. Those guys are both like top 5 guys, I think.
Right.
And now let me tell you my 4th one. Chris Godwin.
You'd like to think Godwin should be better, but
right. But it's tough, right? It's
tough. And I think Claypool would give you a nice kind of like bridge to making sure Godwin becomes Godwin, and if he doesn't, Claypool's going to be a beast. So I'd be trying to get Claypool pretty hard if I'm you right now.
All right. I usually listen to you.
I'm a big buyer. I wish I had more fab. He's not out there in the leagues. I really wish I could get him.
Leather and Wood says, "What up, Wolf? Man, look at it. Did you see his picture? That was awesome."
Ewok. Yeah, this is my boy. I love Leather and Wood. Good to see you. Give my boy the Truth a follow over there on Roto Street Truth.
Yeah, I've tweeted like twice. Austin Forrester kicked off Facebook. I'm back, Wolf. Fat guy, Sly fan. Yeah.
Big Joey Sly guy. My man, Austin. Oh, yeah. I've been wondering where fucking Austin's been. He was like one of our favorite fans. The guy is back. Every time he talked about Fat Boy Sly, I would fucking love it. Good to see you, Austin.
All right. Trade David Johnson for Bell from Fusion.
It's so hard to endorse.
Bell's not on a team.
Exactly. Like it's so hard to endorse that without it. If David Johnson's kind of like your bench, like a running back 4 for you, then I think it's better to have the upside of where Bell could land. But otherwise, David Johnson is as gross as it might be, is just about like its volume, and you're still getting it. So yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, he's not putting up zeros.
Right.
Right now, Bell's going to put up zeros.
Until you land.
Cameron Q. Geckel says, "What up, guys? What up, Cameron?
What up, Cam? My man, Cam Geckel. Love him."
Mitchell Chavez, I'm putting 40% on Claypool. Okay.
Not opposed, especially if you need the running backs. I like it.
Austin Forrester, 5-0 to start. Okay. I wonder if that's why Facebook kicked him off.
Yeah, too good.
Had Claypool on my bench since week 2. Waiver pickups. Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face.
And that's why you're a Wolf, my man, getting ahead of the pack so you don't have to blow 40% this week. Well done, Austin.
Giuseppe Russo, Wolf, my boy.
Giuseppe with the new profile picture over here.
And then a follow-up.
Yeah.
Minshew, Dalton, or Fitzmagic. And if you could rank them, 1, 2, 3. Rest of he wants to know. We're not talking like streaming or whatever.
It's tricky because Fitzmagic to me is the best.
Yeah, he's the best.
But he's also the biggest risk to get benched because they have Tua. They drafted Tua for a reason. So, man, like that's where the tricky line is. Like, if it's a 1-week starter, it's always Fitzmagic. If he plays the rest of the season as the starter, it's Fitzmagic, no doubt.
If you ask us this every week, these 3, we would probably say Fitzmagic
until he's benched. But he's going to be out of these guys. He's the one that's going to find the bench. None of these other guys have any risk behind them in terms of getting benched.
No.
I would probably rank Minshew slightly higher than Dalton, unless I was like 1-4 and needed a Hail Mary, because there is the off chance this offense keeps operating at a crazy pace. And Dalton's no Dak, but like if he puts up 80% of what Dak was doing, you got yourself a top 10 QB. So there is that scenario. So if you need the upside, it's Dalton. But Minshew, highest floor, probably my number 1 there. Then Dalton, because he's going to guarantee a starting job. And then Fitz is the 3rd. But man, if Fitz gets all 16 games, we're going to look stupid. And he should have been the clear guy.
Yeah, I would agree with your assessment of Fitzmagic. I would favor Dalton slightly over Minshew.
Okay, like it.
Austin Forrester, last week I traded Evans, Andrews, and Dak. Okay. Good timing on Dak.
He's running well. Austin is running well.
I know, the guy, crystal ball. I wonder if he's Biff from the Back to the Future 2 with the sports almanac. All right. Got James Robinson, Diggs, and Jamal Williams in return. Well, let's just say I have Mahomes on my bench, and, well, Dak isn't going to do much for that guy.
Yeah. Man, that is wow, impressive foresight. One, how did you have Mahomes and Dak? That's also quite impressive. Essentially, this is Evans and Andrews for Diggs and Robinson. In all honesty, like before Dak got hurt, I would have probably said you lost the trade, even though you had Mahomes on the starting lineup. But now without Dak, it's certainly, I like James Robinson. I don't think it's a fluke, and I think Diggs is absolutely the real deal in Buffalo. So yeah, I think you win this one, especially if you didn't need Andrews and you have a decent tight end.
Who do you like more, Diggs or Evans?
I think I like Diggs. I don't know. That's close, but Diggs. Yeah, I think I have him like 7 and 8. What rest of season receiver? So we're debating like two studs, complete studs.
Corey Wilkes wants to know who should be my number one waiver wire pickup this week: Philip Lindsay or Mike Gesicki. I mean, there's guys I would urge you to pick up before either one of those. I'm assuming that none of them are available. So you're saying, which of these do you think is a better number one pick? What do you think, Wolf?
Yeah, you're saying Claypool's gone, I imagine. You're saying Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks,
Madison.
Some of those guys that might have been hate cut are gone. So then I asked Corey, like, who's your tight end? If you're desperate, Gesicki gives you a tight end 1 the rest of the year. If you're not, then Lindsay could give you a nice RB2 the rest of the year. So more cases than not, because tight ends suck, I'm probably going Gesicki, but Lindsay does, with that DUI news, bring some serious upside here.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Can I go off the cuff again for another question? Personally, sure. I get to ask these sometimes because the Wolf and I are such.
You're the co-host, baby.
Inside track. Just talk to me. Just riff for 30 seconds about Zach Ertz for me. Like, how is he a hate cut?
Tight end's so bad that's like, do you have a better option? Because it would feel
I don't have another one on my team, and I'm still thinking about it.
And there's nobody out there on wait. Like, if you're somebody you could cut him for,
I think Hawkinson might be out there.
Oh, get Hawkinson. What are we doing?
I don't know. I don't know if he's out there or not.
If Hawkinson's out there, it's a no-brainer.
So you would rather have him than Ertz?
Yes, not even close. Literally everything. The matchups have been tough. Okay, good. Poor you, Mr. Zach Ertz. But he also had literally no target competition. If this was the Zach Ertz of old, and you told me every receiver had been knocked out and his only competition for targets was something named Travis Fulgham, and Zach Ertz was going to put up 1 catch for 9 yards despite running a route on every single snap.
Travis, what's his face, looked like freaking Antonio Gates.
That's what I'm saying. So, yeah, he fucking sucks. Zach Ertz is a douche. He's one of the busts of the year. Tight end's so bad it's like hard to cut him. But also, if Hawkinson's out there, then see you the fuck later, Zach Ertz. Yeah, I'm done with him, definitely.
All right, fair enough. Mike Clay wants to know, should I trade Madison for Herbert? I had Dak stacked everywhere else. Okay.
Oh boy, that's a fair offer, especially considering your needs. But you're not getting Herbert for this week, and you're gonna have Madison go off for 20 something this week. So I imagine like the Herbert owner doesn't need Herbert, and maybe he has Dalvin Cook, so he wants his handcuff. That's kind of how I'm reading the situation. Wait a week, like get your 20 points from Madison. Unless you're not going to start him anyways, then go get Herbert, because I think rest of season that is fair. I'd rather have Herbert, especially if I was QB needy, than Madison. But I really want Madison in my lineups if I own him this week. Like he's number 7, I think, in my running back rankings. Like he's gonna blow up. He's gonna blow up, no doubt.
Leaves. Would love to see him in Las Vegas.
I think that's Le'Veon Bell we were talking about.
I'm sure.
I mean, interesting compliment with Jacobs. They could really form a nice. And they just beat. What do you think the Raiders are for real, man? Like they beat the Chiefs.
So. Yeah, they dominated the second half of that game.
They really did.
Mahomes, it's funny. I was going to say Mahomes looked human, but he still kind of didn't really look human.
He 30 fantasy points.
He looked like maybe like a superhero that like was tired.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know. He still just like someone on the RSJ group text at some point in the middle of that second half when they were starting to get a little stopped, just texted Pat Mahomes is the best football player of all time. Because he made some play that was just nuts. Like, the guy is unstoppable. All right, so anyway, I'm blowing smoke up Mahomes' ass. Do I think Las Vegas is for real? Kinda.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, hey,
I
not
love
to
it too.
back to a guy I used to be really high on, but Derek Carr looked fucking awesome in that game.
He did, and you're a Derek Carr truther to the day you die.
No, I was that year though, and I stand by it.
Oh yeah, but man, I think they are, and it's because they built it their way and it's working. Like, they traded away some crazy pieces that everybody bashed them for, and I still like Khalil Mack. You really had to get rid of Khalil Mack. But I mean, I think Mayock is actually a very legit GM. I think Gruden is like as bashed as he was for his first year, had a plan in mind. And I respect the organization for sticking it out, letting them build their guys. And it's working. I mean, Ruggs, you saw what he can do. Lift the lid, keep you in those shootout style games when you need it, game-changing speed. Like you said, Carr is playing well. The defense looks much improved with all the talent they've added. I'd give him a top 12 to top 10 ranking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think they're a playoff team.
Yeah. I'm in it. I mean, yeah, I like them. And the AFC is not all that competitive. So yeah, I like them a lot.
Bricksinson, Dalvin Cook, and T.Y. Hilton for Miles Sanders and Keenan Allen.
It's intriguing.
T.Y. is worthless in my opinion.
Worthless. So it's essentially Dalvin Cook for Sanders and Keenan Allen is what we're looking at here. And I would probably say yes, most cases. Like, Keenan is a top 10 receiver to me. Sanders is a top 15 running back to me, especially if you're in win now mode and like you can't stomach Dalvin's injury and then the bye and then maybe another week. If you're like 4-0, like Dalvin is that valuable that it's tough to ever give him up. But most scenarios, unless you're like 5-0, I'd want Sanders and Keenan Allen for him. Yes.
Okay. Mitch Chavez, KC is another rumored spot for Bell too. It wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't.
Just ruins Clyde Edwards-Helaire after we hype his buy low status. That would be terrible.
Yep.
Yeah. What about the Chiefs? Is what people are saying here.
I mean, what about the Chiefs? Like, it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Matthew Son says, appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing all this. You're welcome. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, man. Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in and giving us the interaction. It's what we're here for, is to help you guys out and chat football with you. So definitely, cheers.
No doubt. 25 says, yo. Yo, right back. 25.
And he wants to hate cut Evans to go with the theme of the week, the glossary term of the week.
Yeah. I mean, we give priority to the messages that work with the glossary term of the week. I don't want you for wanting to hate cut Evan Ingram. I might go you one better and say maybe you should just do it because it might make it better.
Don't want to do it. Again, it comes down to like your Ertz question too. It's like there's so few good tight ends, and Ingram is such athletic talent. Like, but this offense just looks so discombobulated too. So if you have a tight end already. Or you have a good option to cut Ingram for, then yeah, go do it. You have my blessing.
You have the Wolves' blessing. Daniel Allen, Reed Chiefs could have interest in Bell. Yep, we just talked about that, and it would be intense. Noah Pringle, is it even worth keeping Josh Kelly? I get he's a rookie, but it seems like Justin Jackson will be getting majority of touches and targets out of the backfield. Feel like at this point, with Eckler back in a few weeks, it might be worth it to drop him and pick up McKissick instead. I'm not so sure Eckler's going to be back in a few weeks, but other than that, I actually feel like your reasoning's pretty sound.
I'll answer this two ways, Noah Pringle. And thanks for tuning in as always, brother. I don't hate cutting Kelly. I don't think he's a must hold by any means. That being said, if your cut is for JD McKissick, unless you're like desperate to start McKissick this week, I get he's seeing some PPR volume and he's going to catch some balls, but I really think that it's only a matter of time before that is Gibson's full-time role. So I would rather see what Kelly does in another week when they have a nice favorable matchup than cut him for a guy like McKissick. If you have something better you can cut him for, I'm not opposed to it. but I'm not cutting him for McKissick.
Corey Wilkes says, I traded Mike Evans for Michael Thomas yesterday. Grade my trade, fellas.
Interesting.
Graded interesting.
It's one comes down to what's your record? Are you 4-1, 5-0? Sitting pretty, because I do love me some Mike Thomas for the rest of the season, assuming he gets his shit together and stops getting banned from games. Right. I think it's a nice buy low. I'd rather, in a vacuum, I think Mike Thomas outperforms Mike Evans on the season for the rest of whatever is left. But if you're desperate for wins and you can't stomach risk right now, then it's like, well, Evans, is getting you points and he's doing his thing.
I like Evans a lot. I'm telling you.
I really do too. He's killing it with Tommy. So it's one of those trades where I can't say you're a clear winner or loser. It depends on your status and how much you can stomach and what happens with Thomas. What if he gets traded? And who's to say he gets traded to a better team that for his value? I don't think there's many better teams than Breeze peppering him on slants every 2 seconds.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So yeah,
I like Evans getting peppered too. Although, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know
if you're 4-1, 5-0, I'd rather have Mike Thomas. But otherwise, I think you're absorbing some risk that could go wrong. And Evans, unless he gets hurt, really isn't going to go wrong at this point.
Omar F. Wolf, my guys, at The Truth. Are you on Twitter yet? Yes. I am on Twitter right now. I'm not a super exciting Twitter follow. Mostly I just forget to post. I posted like twice, I think, last week. But yeah, I'm at Roto Street Truth. Check me out. I appreciate the follows, and I'll try to become more entertaining over time.
Get him.
I'm an older gentleman, so
give him the follow, baby. It's good dad stuff here.
Yeah. I got one good dad story to tell you before we get off the air. Leaves also went from Dak to Tannehill. Very stoked. Yeah, me too, man. Welcome to the club.
I think it's a great fallback. and leaves emeritus. Right. He knew exactly what you were talking about there.
That was the word. I knew it was a real word. I knew I wasn't imagining it. Min Scribber Mag. I love it. Wolf, I need help. I have Drake and Edmonds. What the fuck do I do with these two? I don't think I can find. And then he trails off. Buyer.
Yeah.
I don't think I can find what he can't find. God, man.
It's an ugly situation. This is Steve, my man, Steve Michelson over here. I'm in the same exact boat in my main league, and hence why I'm 2-3 crumbling and fucking pissed off beyond all belief. Because Kenyon Drake's ruining my fucking life. It's one of those things where it's like, it's the hardest situation because on one hand, Drake's getting the 18 carries. On the other hand, Edmonds is doing far more with the 8 he sees every week. So it's like, who do you play? Do you go with the volume bet? Because I typically always just go with the volume. Or do you go with the production bet? I would love nothing more than Edmonds to just take this role so I can send Drake right onto the waiver fucking wire, never have to deal with that bag of shit again, and have this headache be over. Sadly, it doesn't seem like it's going to head that way. So I keep riding Drake and get pissed, but I hope Edmonds takes over. That's you just got to kind of stick it out because, as you said, there's no one buying either of them. So people might want Edmonds as a throne, but you're not going to get the right value for him. So you just stick it out. That's all you can really do here.
He is such a bag of shit. That was a good description of him.
Yeah, that's it. A bag of mulch, bag of shit, whatever you want to call him.
Noah says, what are you guys thinking about Philip Lindsay now that Gordon might be suspended? We talked about it. We don't think Gordon is necessarily going to miss a full game, but that Lindsay could have impact anyway. So
yeah, spark, like you called him the spark plug that when he gets rolling can really get rolling. So I'd be a little bit nervous if I owned Melvin, but I'm also not sitting here thinking like Gordon's just going to disappear to thin air either. I think it's going to, at probably most likely, it's just going to become an uglier committee because they're going to give Lindsay a good chance now. Whereas I think Gordon had that bell cow role on lock till he handed it over. Well, now he kind of opened the door for him to hand it over. So now it's going to be like a committee. And I don't think that helps anybody, But I think Lindsay could have some nice value this week.
KG wants to know, is Perrine worth a pickup?
The Jets are the Jets.
So, Just say it. No, he's not really worth a pickup. There's a lot of really good guys out there. and he wants to know where you think Bell will go. We hit a bunch of the possible.
Yeah, we covered that one. So we'll keep going.
Will Massey says, I'd have done it. What the hell is he talking about? I wonder.
I don't know what he's talking about.
You could be talking about any number of things. Maybe he's talking about Thomas Evans. I don't know. You got to give us some context.
Yeah, no clue.
Omar says, I think the lack of continuity in the Ravens backfield is hurting Jackson and the offense. Way more effective last year when Ingram got to work. I could not agree with you more. They seem like they should be a good running team. They seem like they should at least have one running back that's producing good fantasy numbers. But for whatever reason, it's not happening. And with that said, what are they, like 4-1?
Yeah, exactly. No, what are they actually? I think they're 3-2. Maybe they are 4-1.
They lost to the Chiefs. Who else?
Maybe you're right. I don't know. Yeah,
I could be wrong. I don't feel like they've lost anybody else. But
and I agree too. Like they were like an offense that seemed to benefit from like a consistent heartbeat. I honestly wish that heartbeat wasn't even Ingram. I wish it was Dobbins because I think Dobbins is so good.
A lot of people wish that.
It's tough.
Julian on Trailer Park Boys loves drinking that Swish.
Is that true? Do they like bring up Swish on Trailer Park Boys?
I don't know. I have no idea. I've never seen it, but I've heard.
You've never seen Trailer Park Boys? It's classic.
Is it good? All right.
That's like a truth type of show too, like that weird fucking demented sense of humor. You would like that shit.
All right.
That I'm not deep enough of a fan though to know that they drink Swish, but if they do, that's fucking
maybe
awesome.
They call something else Swish. Maybe it's not a local brewery from New England.
Yeah, that'd be dope if they do.
Corey Wilkes says, am I foolish for wanting to start Justin Jefferson versus the Falcons over Amari Cooper versus Arizona this week? I feel like it's a bit of a stretch. I maybe wouldn't call you foolish.
That's how bad the Falcons are, right? Like it's not that foolish. It's not foolish. Would I do it? Probably not. Because Arizona's not like that threatening of a matchup for Cooper. But I mean, the QB downgrade, the matchup for Jefferson. The thing is, though, Jefferson had the best possible matchup last week, even better than Atlanta, and didn't do anything. Whereas, like, Cooper didn't do anything either last week. So, you're not psycho, Corey. And you always got to trust your gut. If your gut tells you Justin Jefferson's going fucking bananas, then you can do it.
Because you're going to be so mad at yourself if your gut's telling you that, and then you pick the other way and you're wrong.
Exactly. You always trust the gut. I personally would go Cooper, though.
Yeah, me too. Well, Massey, Jonnu Smith is pretty good, right? Yeah.
It's fucking nasty. And one of my, again, most hated, most like viral tweets. Some people loved it and some people thought I was the biggest moron. I tweeted out I would gladly take Jonnu Smith over Rob Gronkowski every day. And I got no, I tweeted that out like back in the preseason because everybody was all about Gronk back with Brady. And I was like, nope, give me Jonnu. And Jonnu has really, really banged out. He was my number one tight end blow up of the year. And I'm pretty pumped about him. A lot of people weren't on him. It's not like I was like unique there, but yeah.
Yeah.
We have the answer here, by the way, Truth. Look at this. The second person in 2 weeks.
I told you I've gotten it plenty of times. I really have.
Wow.
Dr. KJ Murray says, whoa, just tuned in and I thought the Wolf was interviewing Gronk. Nope, better. It's me.
A bigger seam buster. better fucking athletic specimen.
Sorry to disappoint you, but you actually are getting something much better.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's classic.
That's real. At this point, it's real, right?
Hey, 2 weeks in a row, I can't fucking deny it as much as I want to.
Yeah. There's been several instances. Like, if you see a UFO once, it's one thing. If you see one 2 different times and then, like, it's happened 3 other times, like, at this point, you start to suspect something's going on.
Right.
Mitchell Chavez, Mahomes, and Bell just started following each other on Twitter a few hours ago. Hello. Adding some fuel to the fire. Yeah. Okay.
A little gasoline, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, man. My buy low is not going to look good in a few minutes if that happens. Oh, man. I wonder what they do. Like, I feel like,
they're going to give Bell some burn if they get him.
Adding a talent like Bell always seems to make sense, but like your rookie is doing the job and just hasn't like fully found pay dirt yet. Like that can't feel good to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, do you really want to shatter this dude's confidence already? I don't know.
Do you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like pissed that Mahomes followed him on Twitter?
Yeah, right.
He really? I mean, he wouldn't say it, but you think he's like, man.
That little bastard, right? Oh man, that's interesting though, Mitchell. Interesting indeed.
Right, Clay. Worried about Matty Ice not being able to make it make it a shootout at all. Stinks the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, he stinks.
He's bad, man. He's bad.
He can make it a shootout if they have those fucking weapons, but Julio being banged up, a scarecrow if he plays, like, yeah, Matty Ice sucks right now. That's what sucks is it was like the monster stream. No matter what you did, is you played whoever is facing Atlanta. And Bridgewater, 20 points in the first half. If Atlanta could have had a fucking pulse, Bridgewater would have probably put up 40 and won me a lot of money. Sadly, Atlanta doesn't have a pulse because of no Julio, and Ryan sucks. Ryan does suck right now. It's kind of crazy how fast that's turned around.
Blue Crew Chep. Need to drop one to acquire a bye week running back Higgins or John Brown. Number 2 waiver priority. Free agents are Madison, Freeman. Should I utilize waiver priority for Madison or hope Freeman goes to free agency?
I think the fact that you need a bye week running back means smash Madison, get him on in there. You're getting 20 points. Like you use that priority on Madison because rest of the season he could have some value if they want to preserve Cook. If Cook gets dinged up again, Madison's worth owning on every team. Out of those guys, who do I drop? Oh man, that's tough because I love me some Johnny Brown, but I think Higgins is just going up.
Johnny Brown.
I think I dropped Johnny Brown. I hate to say it.
No, he's the next Antonio Brown. My other running backs are Kamara, Gordon, and Montgomery.
I think you got to get Madison, especially with Gordon. Who knows what the fuck's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, you're in a little bit of a state of flux there, I'd say.
Yeah.
Life OV Nick. Start Chase Edmonds or Kenyon Drake this week. You got them both? Oh, no.
You're part of that problem, man.
I don't know who you like more between those two.
I got to decide too. I'm facing the same dilemma as Life OV Nick.
I
have them both. That's what I was saying to Steve. It's like, fuck. I side with the volume and I go Drake and I hate it. I know Edmonds is going to outperform him.
I would also, if I had to make that choice, I would go Drake. But man, I would hate myself for it.
I hate it. But I will say the only thing I've liked about Drake so far this year was, Edmonds played well last week, and then they still gave it seemed to me like they were like, here's your last shot. They put Drake in, and he had like a drive where he just 8 yards, 7 yards. Touchdown. Like he just kept ripping it. And he was running with far more purpose than we've seen. And I just hope that fucking little fire stays under his ass and he just keeps running like that. Because it was a better runner than we've seen all year. So I'm hoping Life of Nick, that's what happens. I can't say I confidently feel it. My ideal is all this hell of the Arizona running backs is that Drake just goes away and Edmonds becomes the full-time guy because I think he's better.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of running with purpose, did you see that play in the first half of the Titans game last night where Henry was just terrible, but then he had that one play that I think might even been called back by a penalty. He ran 3 yards and some guy got in front of him and he just kind of pushed him out of the way. He just with one hand just threw him 4 yards.
Josh Norman. Yeah. He threw
him. You see that? I was just Henry didn't even look like he was really trying on that play. He kind of jogged a couple steps and then just shoved the guy.
I'm going to send you a video that's going to crack you up that they took that video of Norman going flying and then remixed it into a bunch. You'll crack up. It's one of the funniest videos I've ever fucking seen. He's a
monster, man.
Yeah. He's such a monster. Yeah. But to answer your question, Kenyon Drake, I go. But yes, he's such a good fucking run. No doubt about it.
My CEH for DJ and Edelman question was based on thinking Bell is joining the Chiefs. Okay.
So if that happens, Brendan, if that happens, then okay, then yeah, it seems to make somewhat sense. But I'm not gonna pull a trigger on CEH, who I think should still be a top 6 back because of Twitter follows and shit. If it happens, it happens and shit. But I'm not. If it didn't happen and Bell lands in fucking I don't know where the fuck Houston, you'd be pissed that you traded him for that.
Omar F. with Carson on bye and CMC out. I'm dying at running back. Should I roll Malcolm Brown, Fournette, Brian Hill, or do I dare pick up Gore or Perrine? Gross, he says. I can.
Gross is fucking right. I don't even know. don't know off the top of my head like who the matchups are for these guys. I might go Gore like as the starter against Miami. Like you revenge
with like veteran leadership at least.
Yeah, like you're getting carries with Gore because Bell's gone. So Gore's the best bet at carries and a touchdown. Like I guess that's what I'm going.
All right. Taste the Skittles. Appreciate what you guys do. I have Russ on bye week. Also, Mike Thomas and Justin Jackson dropping Traquan Smith. I have Mike Davis, Mike Evans, Darius Slayton, D. Freeman, G. Kittle, Debo, T. Higgins, Jonnu Smith.
Doesn't seem like there's a question in there, but we appreciate what you do and coming to the show. Taste the Skittles. Let us know if you need like a sit start between any of those guys. I like the squad. It's going to be a matter of like what happens when CMC comes back at running back though, because Davis is obviously carrying. I'm so jealous I don't fucking have him. Ugh.
Mario Rob, would you trade DJ Moore for Kyler Murray? My wide receivers are Adams, Fuller, Woods, and Hardman.
Ship it. Kyler Murray is just ridiculous. Yes, absolutely. If you have that good depth and you lost Dak, as you're saying.
Lost Dak.
I would give up most of any of your receivers other than Adams pretty much. And DJ Moore, no problem. Absolutely, Mario Rob. Send it.
Mike Chikowski says, worth spending the number 3 waiver wire spot on Andy Dalton.
Oh, boy, if you're really desperate at quarterback, but I mean, single quarterback leagues, I don't think you're ever that desperate to blow it. And this week you're going to be transcending the top 2 guys because someone's going to go for Claypool. Madison might be out there. I would put it on those guys first. I wouldn't burn it on Dalton.
What about a 2 quarterback league?
2 quarterback leagues different, especially if it's 2 quarterback and you lost Dak. But otherwise, you're going to have your Fitzmagics. You're going to have your Derek Carrs. Like, it's not worth it. I would save that thing up.
Blue Crew Chet, PPR 10 team. Trade away Drake for Cup. My running backs are Kamara, Murray, Montgomery, Gordon. Wide receivers are Thielen, Godwin, Hollywood Brown, and John Brown. What do you think?
I think so, just because, again, I would give up Drake for pretty much anything. So Cup, like a solid 2, even though it's not like blowing the doors off your wide receiver crew. Like, I don't know, Murray, Kamara, Murray, Montgomery, Gordon. It's like, based on your team composition, though, like, you don't need Cup. Like, I would, though, just because I fucking hate Drake.
Look, you're looking for an opportunity to get rid of Drake. This is as good.
That's a pretty good one.
Decent price for Drake. You should do it. Oh, yeah. By the way, I got a clarifying text on the last question we just answered about Dalton. It is a 2 QB league.
Okay.
It does change things significantly because the guys you listed off, Carr and those guys, they're not going to be around.
Yeah, so it does change it, and it's probably worth it in that point.
Yeah. Joe B, start Chark or Boyd this week?
Well, Chark's probably out, and either way, it's Boyd.
We're going Boyd.
Yeah.
Justin Vetter, thoughts on Fulgham, worth a second priority pick or wait for a bigger fish? There's always a bigger fish, Justin.
I think there's a bigger fish than Fulgham. I like what I saw.
Bigger fish.
10 targets, 100 and whatever yards, 50 yards in a team. Like, I mean, the dude has some very good contested ball skills. And that's what they need right now is someone they can lob it up to. But you got Alshon and Deshaun and Reiger all eventually returning. Like, is Fulgham really going to be the number 1 over all of them? He's played better than all of them because he's actually been available. But it's hard for me to believe that he remains this alpha 10-catch, 150-yard guy. And, there's other guys I'd rather have. So yeah, I'd probably wait there.
Joe B, have Hopkins and DK, but DK obviously on a bye this week. That's awesome.
That's about the best 2 receivers you can fucking have. Damn.
You win.
Yeah.
Flex Higgins or Jay Jackson this week?
Jay Jackson's on bye, so we're going Higgins.
Sarah Riley, would you drop Gibson for Freeman and or drop Jefferson for Crowder? Gibson was limited today.
I would not drop Gibson, no. I think Gibson's only ascending. I get last week was kind of a dud, but I would get Crowder, though. Fuck. Would I drop Gibson for Crowder? I think so, but...
Wow, really?
Crowder's a monster. 3 straight 100-yard games this year. If there's one thing Gase does well, it's pepper the slot. I don't know, though. I'm so high on Gibson. Like, that's tough.
I don't know, man.
I certainly not for Freeman. I'm not into Devonta Freeman. I know he had a decent week, but not into that. But I would try. Is there anyone else other than Gibson or Jefferson you could drop? Because I like them both, but I'd rather have Crowder than Jefferson. I'd probably drop Jefferson for Crowder before I drop Gibson. But I'd love to be able to get all three of them. Is how I look at that one.
Blue Crew Chep, do you guys think Jordan will be suspended this week or will it get delayed? I don't think he'll get suspended this week.
Yeah, the NFL won't suspend him this week, most likely, but I think it could happen at some point, and I think he ends up getting relegated to, into this timeshare, which is unfortunate because he was crushing.
Yeah. So Riley says, or would you drop Gibson for Madison?
No, as good as that 1 week value is going to be for Madison, Gibson, I think, has more season-long value, in my opinion.
Mike says, should I spend the 3 waiver wire spot for Dalton? 12-team, 2 QB league, already have Watson and Breeze. So a little more clarity on the earlier question.
It doesn't seem like you necessarily need that quarterback then. I mean, he's a good depth piece, but you already have your 2 starters. So I don't know that I'd burn it. I don't play a lot of waiver wire leagues, though. So, I do a lot of free agency bidding. So I have a kind of skewed view.
Right. I tend to look at it like I'm really stressed right now because there's all these guys on waivers, and I mean it's a bidding thing. And I'm stressing about how much I'm going to put out there and stuff.
Right.
Like that. And I'm trying to size up the other guys in the league. Some of them treat it like real money and they won't ever bid high, and some guys will bid their entire wad, and it's a huge source of stress actually.
Yeah.
I don't do much in the waiver wire thing either, but I agree with the Wolf that. You seem to have quarterback locked down pretty well.
Right.
So I probably wouldn't do it, but I'm sure there's more context to it even than what you've given. My gut is nah, why bother?
Same here.
Jack Milahelch. Wolfie, let's go. I'm crushing it, dog. Good for you, Jack.
Glad to hear it.
Austin Fearster, I don't need a tight end in our league. Full PPR. Good luck on flipping that 2-3 around, Wolf. Keep the pack alive. We'll be following from here on out, and I'd take the meth and go after Sue. Hashtag bench and tacos for Sue. Okay.
Yeah, I like it. All of it's the best, man. Austin, we've missed you so much. I'm glad that you're back.
I love that sentence. I'd take the meth and
take the meth. That sounds like a guy that's looking forward to the meth. No.
And Dak says, lost Dak, but I have Goff feeling pretty good, not great. I just traded Tampa Bay defense for Lindsay last night. That sounds like actually a pretty good deal. Last night, LOL, fleeced that MF. Adios, Wolfie. Let's go. I agree.
Let's go.
You trade the Tampa Bay defense for anything, you probably fleeced the other.
Any defense for anything is a great deal.
Especially the Tampa Bay defense, which isn't like a good defense, really.
Yeah.
Noah Pringle, thoughts on the Lions as a possible destination for Bell? Ugh.
Ew. Yeah. I mean,
running backs go to die, man.
Exactly. Wouldn't shock me given that they give Adrian Peterson's corpse 25 carries a game. But then it's like a Swift. What the fuck happens with Swift? I don't know. I hope to God it doesn't happen. But it wouldn't shock me given the way that they fucking compile just old corpse running backs.
Matt B, does Chase Edmonds repeat his performance this week against Dallas?
A lot of Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake shit.
Yeah, it's bothering a lot of people.
It's such a head pretzel. I mean, he's got the talent and the matchup's right against Dallas. They gave up, against the Browns, 307 yards and 3 TDs. And then you got Freeman doing well, but I don't know. Drake's getting the majority of the volume, so it's still tough to fully endorse him at any point.
Worth spending. Oh wait, he already said that.
Yeah.
Good. Corey Wilkes, is LaMichael Perrine going to be a thing, or should we ignore him because he plays for the Jets? You should probably ignore him because he plays for the Jets.
Agreed.
Hate the Drake, Matt says. LOL. We do too.
Yep. We sure do as well.
And Corey says, "What if I could get what could I get if I sent Edmonds and Drake away? I don't know, 2 cans of Magic Beans, maybe."
Exactly. Instead of 1 can, you get 2. Who wants to take on that nightmare? I want to get rid of that nightmare, so I can't imagine too many people are sitting here.
Both of them even worse than getting 1 almost.
Right, exactly. Because then you're dealing with which one do I play as I watch Edmonds outperform him, but Drake out carry him. I mean, get what you can. Do it. Get what you can. But I don't want either. The only hope again for this situation is Edmonds just takes over and becomes the monster and gets the usage. Or maybe fucking Kingsbury wakes up and starts actually throwing to his running back. Who knows? Maybe it happens.
One more after. If I have both Ayuk and Debo on a team, which one would you drop for Cooks, if at all?
Probably Ayuk.
Yeah, probably Ayuk.
Yeah, Debo has more long-term upside, in my opinion. And I would drop either of them, though. I'd rather have Cooks than both. So I would drop Ayuk first, personally.
Corey Wilkes, y'all just answered my question about the Jets. That's why y'all are the GOATs. Thanks, man.
Corey Wilkes is the GOAT.
Marcos Valdez says, injuries are killing me. I lost Chubb, Dak, and Cook, Stafford or Fitzpatrick, and flex Jonnu or David Johnson. Thank you.
I'm going to go Stafford versus Fitz is close. I think I'm going to go Fitz against the Jets, unless that means you have to drop Stafford.
Don't drop Stafford for it, but I agree. I like his matchup better.
And then flex, David Johnson, the Texans get the Titans. Titans an okay defense, but nothing special. Jonnu's going to destroy the Texans, though. So you know what? I'm going to go Jonnu there, personally.
Which two? Fat Boy, what's up? Which two should I start out of Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, and Hollywood Brown?
I'm going to go A.J. Brown as my favorite, and then Justin Jefferson against the Vikes a little bit above Hollywood.
I would have gone for the Brown boys. Also, where's the treehouse?
I love me some treehouse. I actually have some in the fridge. I could crack one open next time. I'll save it.
If we keep rolling on these questions, we've been going like 45 minutes. I'm gonna have to get another beer soon, pretty soon.
Seriously, right? I think we have to cut it off in 5 minutes. That's a 2-hour show.
Scott Baird. I'm in a league ran by Pat Fitzmaurice. This is our 31st year.
Fucking awesome. Scott Baird. I actually had Pat Fitzmaurice on the podcast this summer. I don't know if you caught that episode. He's the fucking man, though. Like, what a nice, genuine guy. Very talented guy. Scott Baird, how do you do in the league against him? Because he always is ranked in like the top 10 of Fantasy Pros stuff. He's a genuine great dude, though. I've always wanted to meet him. So you must know him for a while if it's your 31st year. So cheers to you. Cheers to Pat. I love me some Pat Fitzmaurice. Great guy. Great content. Awesome stuff. That's cool. I feel like I have like a mini celebrity commenting in here if you know Pat Fitz.
The first year that I played fantasy was 28 years ago, but I've played 28 consecutive years.
Yeah. That's incredible. 31st year.
Yeah, right. He's 31st. Yeah, that puts mine to shame. Fat Boy. Also,
I'm 31 years old. That's literally he's been playing fantasy in that league as long as I've been alive. That's amazing.
Yeah, you're young as hell. Also, have you ever eaten an entire pumpkin pie in one sitting? Fat Boy wants to know. I have not, but I have eaten I've eaten things with like probably more calories than that. I've eaten like an entire box of like 12 Krispy Kreme donuts in a sitting.
I've done like 50 chicken nuggets at once. That was pretty good.
Hey, on a trip to Utah, remember we used to take trips. Me and our mutual friend, we had been in the wilderness for a couple weeks, and so this was like the day we were coming out. We'd been in the wilderness for like 11 or 12 days, and we went to this McDonald's in Utah somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and they had 40-piece nugget meals. Me and our former coworker Damian Ramsey each got a 40-pack and went to town.
Fuck yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, and I didn't regret it even for a second.
Nope. Love nuggets, but no, I've never done entire pumpkin pie. Kind of I probably could.
Yeah, I think it could.
Especially if I had some PEDs, some little weed in the system. But pumpkin pie is not a thing I'm like seeking out to do a whole one. I met Fat Boy. Have you done one? Are you like leading into a brag about eating a whole pumpkin pie and living up to your name?
That Mitch Renz secretly.
Yeah, right. Seriously, hiding out there.
EK Pew 28. Rest of season, would you value James Conner or James Robinson more? James Conner just perennially scares me. Yeah. I should say James Conner, but I would probably say James Robinson.
I would too. Conner it's a ticking time bomb. If you get 16 games, you're getting yourself an RB1, but we know it's coming sooner or later. And Robinson feels pretty similarly close to an RB1 every week. And it doesn't, who knows if he has injury concerns or not, but we know Connor is just a bomb.
We just suspect he's going to get hurt. Matt B says, do I pick up and start Fitzmagic or start Cam coming back off IR?
Must have missed the early part, right? Yeah. Cam's my hire of the week. I'm all in on Cam this week. Yeah, all in on Cam this week.
Bill Jagier.
My man Jagier.
Bill Jagir.
Bill Jiggy.
Pronunciations, right? Still waiting for a stallion to emerge out of my RB2 stable of ponies. Will Damian Harris or Cam Akers become my guy, or do I just need to roll the dice every week with my gross options? Man, I hope it's Harris.
Yeah, I could see Harris. I mean, the 100 yards in his first game, but I could see Akers, 60 yards on only 6 carries last week. They seem to be reluctant to just hand over the reins to anyone, and I wonder if that's because they want it to really be Akers there. If I had to put my money on one, it'd be Harris, but I think both those guys could emerge. I personally am banking on I need Akers everywhere, so I'm hoping it's him, but I feel better about Harris personally.
Mitch Chavez, my bad, LOL. If I get Claypool, flex him or Higgins, I'd go Claypool.
Claypool. Hell yeah, Claypool.
Ethan Pugh, this might be our last one. James Robinson or James Conner, rest of the season, who's more valuable? We just answered that. All right, this is our last one. 909 Orbits. Lindsay's on waivers. How much fab should I spend? I have D. Harris and Drake as my RB2. My condolences.
I wouldn't burn that much though, because it's one thing if we knew Gordon was going to miss a bunch of games, but we don't. So yeah,
I like him. I don't love him.
Yeah, I like him. All right, so we got Antonio for DJ Chark. I get Chark. No, I'd keep Gibson. I'll rip these real fast.
I was gonna ask if that was Ozzy, but then I was like, well, what if that's his grandmother or something? I didn't want to offend him. I wanted to say is that Ozzy or what?
That's fucking awesome. Congrats to you, Matt B. Time to give up on Schultz. I have Tunyon Cook is on waivers. Yeah, I don't think we need to hang on to Schultz.
Time to give up on Schultz. KC Radar. We'll take this one just because it's CJ. It's the Salt Man. KC Radio host, Blue Check on Twitter. Bell is expected to decide tonight or tomorrow morning where he will sign. I'm told it's between the Chiefs and 4 other teams.
Wow.
It does not narrow it down a ton, but it does tell us the Chiefs are in his group of 5. So who knows? Yeah.
Sleepy refresh. I think we got your question. I said Antonio personally is my my answer. And Fat Boy, smash pies and one sitting all the time. I love it. Fat Boy's my favorite of all time.
I waited an hour and 40 to get a Fat Boy comment. It was totally worth it.
And he came on in and came through for the clutch. All righty, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, making it a blast. Again, 2 hours of an hour of that being questions because you guys are just the best.
Yeah, I mean, look, thank you for. Sorry we had to cut a couple people off, but thanks for making us do that. Thanks for having so much interaction that we had to.
It's funny. We used to be scrambling to text our buddies hey, we need a question for the mailbag. And now we have to cut it short at this point. It's great. It's exciting. And we appreciate it so much, Wolfpack. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be here at 7 p.m. live every Wednesday, 7 p.m.-ish, depending on, if we're running late.
Usually 7:15.
We do have other jobs, so it's sometimes a little late here. But ultimately, we're pumped to be here. I'll be here at 7 p.m.-ish tomorrow as well, 11 a.m. Saturday and Sunday for your live streams. If you want to get some more questions in, your Wolf Boy will be here. You can find all our stuff, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. Roto ST Journal on Twitter. I am Roto Street Wolf. He is Roto Street Truth on Twitter, which I'm sure there's going to be just booming with content all week.
It's going to be a hotbed. I
Absolutely.
really am going to try to work on it. I just don't remember to do it, but I do have plenty of stuff to say. So
there you go. And if you haven't already subscribed on YouTube, it means the world because we're trying to really get to 1,000 there. Obviously, subscriptions on the podcast, Fantasy Fullback Dive. We pave your path to 2020 titles. So appreciated. But Wolfpack, thank you so much for tuning in. I am the Wolf.
I'm Nat the Truth Jones.
Until next time, guys. See you later.
Later.